Well, hello there, everybody. How are we doing this Friday night? I guess none of you who are watching this have your evening plans, or maybe I am your evening plans. That would be something if somebody wanted to stay in and watch me babble for an hour or two about the DB Cooper case. But hey, whatever floats your boat. Maybe some of you will be listening to this. Those of you who have better things to do will be listening to this on a future podcast, perhaps. But anyway, I'm glad that you people are joining me tonight. Let's see, I've already got a bunch of people in the comments. Let me say hello to some people. The intro music scared the hell out of you, Chris. Well, comes out of nowhere. Let's see who we've got. Lionheart, everybody. Lane Kiffin. Okay, we're already talking about football. Hey, man, this is an open show. Okay, anybody who's watching this, you can ask me. We can talk about history, dinosaurs, the Alamo, Kung Fu, Bruce Lee, movies, Steven Spielberg, whatever, jetpacks, Elon Musk, whatever you want to talk about, the Beatles, we're going to talk about it. So, but let's see, we got Ed, Big Ed. Hey, Ed, you're being rude. I'll never forget Big Ed's voice. You're being rude. It's got a booming Montana voice. Ed's one of those Montana guys that Radicek was worried was going to go beat the hell out of Cooper in the back. All the guys, all the Montana dudes in first class with their free beverages. Jim's in the chat. Hello to Poirot in the UK. Hello to Ian. Ian, I need to have you on the show. To quote Radicek, Ian's a guy who knows a thing or two about an airplane. Jim Aurelian had a bunch of questions in here. Hello, everybody. Hello to Still Stool Boom. Mini Pup. My gosh, everybody's in the chat. Jay, everyone. Mary Johns. Hello, everybody. And from Ireland. Hi, Slim Killigas is from the Emerald Isle. Mississippi is not like the Emerald Isle at all. Okay. Uncle Jim and his jambalaya. I don't know why. I have an uncle named Jimbo. I don't know. Anyway, DB Cooper, you'll be in and out. All right. So we're going to start out. But like I said, anything y'all want to talk about tonight, y'all let me know. But let's see. I'm going to get into some questions right away. Okay. Jim says, was the FBI bulletin of DB Cooper's description ever updated to include a larger lower lip and a turkey gobble? No, they never updated that, which is, I guess that they figured that only one person mentioned the turkey gobble. So maybe they didn't want to include that. But that is the frustrating thing about the turkey gobble is that Bill Mitchell said that he drew a side profile sketch and that he gave it to the FBI within a week of the hijacking and he never got it back. So I suspect that at some point we might see Bill Mitchell's side profile sketch show up in the FBI files. That would be pretty cool. Because that would help maybe give us an idea of his nose, right? That's the problem about Cooper's nose. Is I do think he had a thin nose, but we don't know how long his nose was. Did he have a long nose or a short nose like me? I got a little button nose. We don't know because we don't have a side profile sketch. The FBI did ask the passengers, which of you can give a side profile sketch? And Tina and Bill said, yes, we can, but they never made one. Jim says, who besides Tina Mucklow reported a large lower lip? That would be, well, all of the stewardesses really. That's what Roy Rose said. If we look at what Roy Rose said and what he drew, we've got there. Roy Rose said that they described DB Cooper as a middle-aged person dressed in a suit with a dark complexion and a sort of protruding lower lip. And if we look at the lips on all these sketches, we've got some lips. Even there at the bottom right, you've got the Dracula sketch, which was drawn, 19 years later, 18 years later, and it still has this weird lower lip. So Flo Schaffner, 18 years later, remembered a funky lower lip. I have FOIA'd for this. This is, that redaction is Miss Mucklow is what that redaction says, but it says Miss Mucklow advised that Hartley's lower lip, as displayed in Los Angeles photo, yada, yada, is similar to that of unsubs. I've actually FOIA'd both the LAPD and the FBI for a clearer version of this photo because I'd like to see. This was in 73 also, so I'd like to see which, if Tina remembers, Tina remembers his lip 2 years later. I'd like to see what she remembers. And this is Alvin Curtis Hartley. It was a kind of a belligerent ass of a suspect. Not Cooper, but he didn't like being a suspect. he was kind of a jerk to the FBI agents. Thought the whole thing was silly. He did work in a mine, though, so let's watch out, folks. These mining Coopers. But Alvin Hartley, though, I'd like to see what this lip is that Tina Mucklow remembers. We've got Alice Hancock here talking about Al Cooper, the suspect. She says, Mrs. Hancock advised that, in her opinion, the FBI's artist's conception of unknown subject's mouth. Oh, wait, never mind. She is talking about this sketch. She says, Mrs. Hancock advised that, in her opinion, the FBI's artist's conception of unknown subject's mouth is still not identical. Lower lip, not as pouty as she remembers the unknown subject. And that word pouty, I don't have that 302 in front of me, but pouty is another word used by Mucklow. So we've got Alice Hancock and Tina Mucklow both using it, separate interviews, separate times, using the term pouty. And I've speculated that Cooper's weird lip is what we've got several witnesses talking about Cooper looking like he didn't give a damn. And I think that's just his lip maybe gave off that appearance, because if you're wearing sunglasses, if you're doing like that, maybe you look bored. Like, think about a child who's bored. They're going to stick their lip out. So I think maybe his protruding lower lip gave him the disinterested look that people described him as having. Because I know Cooper was calm, but he's not that calm. Even the FBI are like, this was a facade. There's a 302 where they're saying Cooper clearly was nervous, but he hid it well. But okay, more Jim. Jim Aurelian have a bunch of questions. Bill claimed to have seen Cooper's full face without the sunglasses, but did he not say he only saw him from the left side view? No, Cooper. I mean, Bill never. I don't know. I mean, Bill probably would have only seen him from Bill would have probably only seen him from the left side, but maybe not. He did pick out a pair of eyes for Cooper, though. How accurate can Bill Mitchell's account of Cooper be if he did not know there was a hijacking going on? Well, the thing about Bill's funny because he legitimately was bored on the plane, and every time he would get distracted from his studies, he would look over and get kind of mad at the guy for bogarting the chick and from him. And he says he was deliberately like picking on the guy, just having fun with the guy. So the things that Bill picked on the guy about just for fun in his head, he remembered, which is, it's kind of a interesting coincidence, really, that, I mean, Bill would have had no reason if Bill wasn't picking on the guy and just messing with him just in his brain, then yeah, his opinion would be the same as some of the other passengers, which isn't much. But they seemed to like Bill, the FBI, because he wasn't afraid of Cooper. So he did not know he was in danger. And generally your memory is better if you're not in danger. But again, as you said, he didn't know there was a hijacking going on. So how much did he pay attention? But as I said, he was looking at Cooper to pick on him. So the FBI thought that was good enough. Was Composite A by Mr. Rose done with only the input of the Three Stews? Okay, so yes, the very first, not Bing, but we just call it Composite A, this fella here. This was drawn with the three stewardesses, just the three stewardesses sitting there. Now, this was taken and all of them said it was good. That's the thing about the Comp B stuff. We can get into that some other time, but all three of the primary witnesses said this sketch was good. Tina said this sketch looks 100% like him. Now, granted, 2 years later, she says the same thing about Comp B, but if you're being honest, if something somebody says 2 days after an event is going to be, you would think, more accurate than what they would say 2 years later. But they showed this sketch when they took this to the witnesses, to the passengers and the other people, none of them bitched about it. None of them were like, oh my God, he looks like an alien. We can't have that. They just made some slight adjustments to it. They said, hey, maybe I think Spreckle said his forehead should be wider. Gregory said make his nostrils a little wider. His nose is pretty small, but again, Roy Rose did not invent that nose, people. That sketch has a weird little nose because that's what the stewardesses told him to draw. So, but none of the passengers complained too much about the nose, but they said maybe, I think Spreckle said make his cheeks a little wider, make his forehead a little wider. And you can actually see that when they went and made the sketch with the eyes, what we call Bing, he's a little wider. They incorporated him. So look there, you can see it right there. Bing Bing is the one without the glasses. Okay. We're just going to call Comp A the one with glasses. Bing is wider. Look at his cheeks. His cheeks are fuller. His chin is fuller. His forehead is wider. So people would think that maybe they just put a pair of sunglasses on that sketch, but they didn't. No, Bing is different than Cooper. His nose may be even a little wider. But I have a FOIA out for super high res scans of the original sketches. That the Bing sketch there is pretty good. That's a good scan of it. But the one on the left, I'd like to have a good version of Comp A. But you can see that Bing is wider than Cooper. And interestingly enough, when they took Bing to the stewardesses, they didn't like the changes. They said, you've made his head too wide. So again, that's why I'm a Comp A guy, because if we're just being honest, we go with the earliest recollection is generally going to be your best. And I think anybody who's being honest without an agenda will admit that. Okay. Okay. Ask Jim, get all these questions. Given her mental state as observed by the cockpit crew, should anything Flo said be considered accurate? Well, okay. For one thing, we don't actually know what the cockpit crew thought about Flo. We don't have any recollection. We have no testimony of them saying she was crying or that she was panicking or anything like that. It's assumed because they didn't let her go back out there. They did let her go back out once, and that was to take Cooper's notes back. 20 minutes into the hijacking, Cooper did say, hey, bring my note back. Well, bring his note back and bring the instructions that Flo wrote down. He wanted to take those with him. So I don't know why he wanted to take Flo's note with him, or the one that Flo wrote, but he still wanted it anyway. So that was taken back to him. So they did let her go back there, but we're just assuming that they kept Flo up there. But you can read between the lines with Flo that I do think that she was maybe crying and they didn't want to send her back there. But no, Flo is actually our best witness. And the FBI liked Flo as a witness because of her duality. She is the only person who saw Cooper before he was a hijacker and after he was a hijacker. And I believe I've counted maybe 7 different interactions that she had with Cooper while he was just another passenger, looking her dead in the eyes without his sunglasses on. So she had the most reason to ever remember Cooper of anybody. And they valued her way more than not way more, but they seemed to rely on her more than they relied on Tina, just because, and her memory did last longer. You know, if you read the 302s again, Flo doesn't admit defeat until I think 1976, when she says, stop showing me photographs. I can't remember his face. Tina is like 1974. So no, her mental state probably was a benefit in some ways. Did any of these eyewitnesses really actually remember what Cooper looked like? Could they not all be wrong? Again, I like to think about Cooper's appearance as features. The things that come up time and time again, if you've heard me say this a million times, but his nose seems to be small, narrow. He's got a weird lip. His face is long, kind of a triangle, inverted triangle sort of shape. And those things come up repeatedly in the 302s, and also kind of ugly. So those things come up a lot. And if you look at the Dracula sketch, here's the Kevin Spacey and Dracula. But if you look at the Dracula sketch there on the left, there's no way Flo remembers anything about Cooper really 19 years later. But look at the features, though. Think about the features. Narrow, pointed kind of nose, weird lower lip, triangle face, up inverted triangle face, wide forehead, receding hairline. These are the things that, Coopery things. If you don't have some of those things, then I'm kind of not into you as a suspect. Okay. The McCoy kids seem like they want their father to be famous and are trying to turn him into Jesse James or Billy the Kid type of fame. What do you think? I don't think Rick or Shantae are glory hounds at all, honestly. They're not those kind of people. I do think that, I don't want to say that they're being led astray by Grifter, but Grifter's a very charismatic person, and I think that they would prefer their father to be Cooper. Why not? And if Grifter's going to pump up their dad, then they're going to believe him. But I don't know. Some of the things Grifter does, you just wonder. Like Rick McCoy said that he had no idea that Dan was in the woods filming their farm or whatever when those agents and game wardens showed up. He had no idea that Dan was in the woods filming that. Like, what a creep. So we've got that. But I don't think the McCoy kids are glory hounds, but I do think that they would like it. I've asked Shantae before. I'm like, hey, did you see my video about McCoy, about your dad? She said, yeah. And I said, well, you still believe it was your dad? She goes, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Rob Graham says, how common was it pre-security to bring a weapon or a parachute on a plane as a passive passenger? John Limbach pointed out that Gary Hemming, Skip's comrade, bringing a rig and gun grenades wherever he flew. If there's no security, there's no security. I know the thing that comes to my mind first is there's a really interesting story of Frank Goodell was a copycat who did a copycat hijacking in San Francisco for $300,000 or something like that. And he was actually active military. He's the only copycat, one of the only hijackers I know of, maybe the only hijacker who was active military. He was actually in service and went AWOL to go do a Cooper copycat hijacking. He had mental illness, clearly, from Vietnam, and he had come back and was still active duty and went to San Francisco and did this hijacking. But there was an undercover, like sheriff's deputy or detective or something on the plane who just had his personal sidearm with him. And he volunteered to be the hostage he said, I'll be your hostage to Frank, and said, I'll be your hostage if you'll let everybody else go. Now he had a gun on him. And here's the thing that was really smart is Frank had a gun too. Francis Goodell had a pistol. And the sheriff's deputy guy told him and said, look, I have a pistol on me and I have handcuffs too. You can handcuff me to this chair if you want. And here's my pistol. He put his hands up and said, take my pistol from me. And Frank took his pistol. It was kind of a way of endearing himself to Frank. And he eventually, this sheriff's deputy, it's a wonderful story. It should be like a stage play or something. He told all about his experiences in World War II that kind of messed him up a little bit. And him and Frank had this kind of common bonding experience being soldiers. And he talked Frank down from the hijacking. So this kind of hero sheriff's deputy who was so generous, and he actually went to all of the court hearings for Goodell and said, hey, this kid's got promise. He was in the war, and stood up for him. This is a hostage. And he showed up and really spoke well of Frank. And I don't think Goodell was in the brig, or I don't think he was in custody for very long, maybe a couple years, but he got out. And he died a couple of years ago, and it kind of makes me sad. Really wanted to talk to him, but cool story though. But anyway, yes, you could have a gun on the plane. Okay. What was the value of the $20 bills that got sold by Ingram? They got sold by Ingram. Well, I think he just sold a good one for maybe $27,000 or something. Nikki might know, but yeah, he can still sell them for a pretty penny. Why was the FBI so deferential to the airlines regarding hijackings? I don't think it was just the airlines. So the FBI had an active policy at the time that if you are being extorted, or if there's some sort of ransom situation or an extortion going on, that they left it up to you to decide how to handle it. they said, look, you can pay the ransom and hope for the best, or we can intervene. And that was like a standard operating procedure. So it didn't matter if it was an individual person being extorted or if it was an airline. And in the case of the Cooper hijacking, it would be Northwest Airlines. And they said, hey, do you want us to intervene or not? And Donald Nyrop, the president of Northwest Airlines, basically said, hell no. Let's just pay him his ransom and be done with it. And so really the FBI was very standoff. People don't believe this, but I mean, I've talked to a couple FBI agents who were there that night, and they have no reason to lie at this point. They're in their 80s. And they said, no, we were told to stand down, and we did. We just sat there twiddling our thumbs until the passengers came off. Once the passengers came off, oh, hot damn, we can do something. But they were just at the airport hanging out. Earl Milne, the special agent in charge of the Seattle office, wrote a 302 where he says, okay, the money bag arrived. I didn't touch it. I wasn't supposed to touch it. It didn't. I just looked at it. It had money in it, yada, yada. So they're passive observers. A taxi cab brings the 2 backpacks to SeaTac. State Patrol, the Highway Patrol. I don't think Washington calls them the Highway Patrol. They call them the State Patrol. But the State Patrol brought the 2 front chutes from Issaquah, and a Seattle PD detective brought the money in a Dodge Dart, a crummy Dodge Dart, apparently, in an undercover cop car to SeaTac. The FBI never touched the money. They never touched the parachutes. They never touched any ransom items because this was a transaction between a customer and a business, is the way that it was thought of at the time, legally, I guess. Or at least in the moment, not legally, but in the moment. Okay. I don't know how to say that. Smalley something. I think Lauren Hall is the best suspect we had so far. He checks every single box and then some. Checks a lot. I mean, there's really not, I don't really know of any real criticism of him other than maybe he does have some forehead lines sometimes. When he does this, you can really see his forehead lines, but Cooper had forehead lines. I mean, that's part of his sketch. He had facial lines. So he's got lines on his face and everything. I mean, look at Hoodlum. Look at Hoodlum's forehead. Look at Carey's forehead. So Skip Hall having forehead lines. I've seen some people say a criticism, and that I suppose that's a valid criticism of Skip. But no, Skip's a good suspect. He's as good as any. He's getting close to passing, not like in my personal opinion or anything, but he's getting close to passing. I think this is like this photo kind of shows his forehead lines. Yeah, you can see his forehead lines there, but hey, I mean, that's not crazy far off, is it? So, but I think that, I mean, this is a guy who was a major criminal in the 60s. Again, he turned into like a meth kingpin, and no one it's not Walter White. Very few people just turn into meth kingpins. Skip Hall was always doing nefarious criminal activity. He just didn't get caught until he was an old man. So this is a guy who was a legitimate criminal. He was from Kansas, so that's perfect Midwest accent. He worked in the aviation industry. He was working for, I think, Northrop Aviation right before. The only criticism really, if you were a tie particle person, then maybe that's an issue. But Skip was around aviation construction, so possibly. But Northrop, the stuff that John Limbach posted on Facebook, my God, I may have to pull that up here for everybody. So for those who saw it, he posted it. So it was he told me a month or two ago, and I was stunned by it. But I'll show the people who aren't on the Facebook group that. Let me try to find it. Or did he post that in the? Oh, John, where'd you post that? The coin. Sorry, folks. I'm about to try to find this. Where is this coin? Did he post that in the? It must have been in the other Facebook group. Hang on, folks. Bear with me here, because I'd like to find this. For those who are not in the Facebook, it's going to knock you on your ass. Well, okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. Would love to see this. I would love to find where this is. Talk amongst yourselves. Oh, bloody hell. Well, folks, okay, well, guess not. Maybe you took it down. You didn't take that down, did you, Packer? Or did you put that in was that in the CIA group? I'd like to know where you put that, Packer. Anyway, well, I don't have it to show you guys, but that's making me mad. Anyway, so John found out that I have photos of it somewhere, but Skip Hall, before he died, gave his grandkids commemorative coins and we've got photos of these coins from the grandkids. He gave them commemorative coins that had a Boeing 727 on it. It said 727 with the year 1971 on all of them. So 1971 coins, commemorative coins, 1971 with a Boeing 727 on them. Gave them to each of his grandkids, I think, before he died, or maybe it was the kids. Maybe it was his kids or grandkids. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. But yeah, that's pretty damn crazy that we've got something like that. But sorry, I couldn't find that. That was a waste of time. But anyway, all right. Let me look for some stuff. Yes, but anyway, yeah, Skip Hall is a good suspect. Gosh, everybody's in here. Okay. I just read the Gunther book. Why does he say Cooper sat in row 15? That's so obviously wrong. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with the Gunther book. You shouldn't get wrong, really. Row 15. And what's sad is that was on Wikipedia for a while. They were citing the Gunther book on Wikipedia and said Cooper sat in 15B, or it wasn't even, I think it was like 15B or something. It's ridiculous. Gunther's book also has Captain Scott going back there to look at the bomb. Hey, you have this bomb here? Hey, Wendina. Are there any advancements in researching Verdal? No, although I believe Nikki had talked to Verdal's grandson and he found a box of like old home movies from the 50s or 60s or something. So we might have some film footage of Verdal, some more. We've got some footage of Verdal, but we might have some more. What about the possibility that Dan was a Canadian? I like a Canadian because, yeah, he could have. The thing is about a Canadian is that the FBI don't have, I mean, they can get jurisdiction to go up there and mess around, but that's a little harder to get. A Canadian citizen could be a lot easier to blend in, right? They could do that. Do I think Walter Reca was hunting Cooper and the money that night? No, I don't know about that whole thing. I'm not convinced it was the night of the hijacking, and I'm not convinced it was Reca. Part of me, I have a theory that I don't know how to explain it, but I would explain it that I feel like Reca is the type, and I'm sorry, Lisa Story, if you're watching, but like Reca was in my opinion, a serial liar. He was cosplaying as Cooper. It was kind of cosplaying as Cooper. He was cosplaying as Jason Bourne before anyone knew who Jason Bourne was. He was a cosplay CIA agent kind of guy. He's one of these stolen valor types too. I think that he's one of these guys who never saw combat and felt bad that he didn't. And so he had to embellish things. But this guy says he worked for the KGB, the CIA, every FBI. It's just nonsense. But I feel like Reca is the type who would steal a story from somebody and make it his own. Think about these guys who I joke about Cotton Hill and King of the Hill, right? Cotton Hill talks about being at D-Day. And Peggy's like, Pop, you weren't at D-Day. He goes, yeah, I was. She goes, well, then you weren't at Iwo Jima. Yeah, I was. It's like that sort of thing. And so, but anyway, I think that maybe with Reca, maybe he heard a tall tale or something. He heard a story one night. Well, a true story, I guess. But maybe he was hanging out at the airfield where he hung out with all these people in Detroit. And some guy was like, hey, you know what's a crazy story? The night of DB Cooper, my Cessna ran out of gas and I had to land in a field and walk into Clay Ellum. I bet those people thought I was DB Cooper. And And all everybody starts laughing and hee-hawing. And Reca's like, oh, that's a good story. I can co-opt that and make it my own. I was DB Cooper because I did this. I don't know. Something's fishy about that. Jeff Ossadich, the guy the singing cowboy or whatever, who says he met Reca, I don't think he's a liar, but what known suspects have the lower lip thing? Skip Hall does. Verdal does. Dwayne Weber certainly does. I don't know if you do, but a lot of them have thin lips. Gossett's got little bird lips. Okay. Reca said he was East. I hope I can make it to CooperCon this year. Irving, you need to come to CooperCon, man. It's the shit. Alvin looks a little bit like the initial sketch. Well, everybody does. Everybody can look like. Where is it? Where is he? Rico Suave. I can look like Rico Suave if I wanted to. I got to come up with a name for this guy. I call him Rico Suave because his hair looks kind of suave. I don't know what to call him. Wavy Gravy. I don't know. He needs a name. I've got Hoodlum and Carrie, and I just call this guy Rico Suave. Okay. Hey, Drew. S. I don't know what Drew wrote S for. In the sauce, Drew. We speak in sentences here. If you want to attend the 2024 CooperCon, you better find Marty and Doc. Oh, I get it. Darren Schaefer thinks Cooper knew McCoy. What do you think? Might explain a few things. They don't need that. No, Darren does not believe that. Darren just thinks it's funny that you could have, Cooper and McCoy meet each other. But no, it doesn't need to explain anything. He was a fanboy, just like the other guys were. The first Cooper copycat, Richard LaPointe, who jumped out, had posters or had like clippings of DB Cooper hanging on his wall, apparently. And if you listen to McCoy's sister-in-law, he never shut up about the Cooper hijacking. She says she's in the FBI files saying he did not stop talking about the Seattle hijacking for weeks after it happened. He was kind of obsessed with the whole thing. Tina had a nervous breakdown. I don't believe that. There's no evidence of that. She became a nun, but Tina was always super religious. Flo says that she just talked nonstop about Christianity in hotel rooms and things. So, was Tina assaulted? No, she was not. Okay. Dodge Ram, what did you miss? Me bloviating, my friend. Didn't Cooper look over when they wanted people to move up and Bill didn't want to move? Maybe. Tina tells Tusaw that Cooper was miffed that Mitchell wouldn't move. He was like, tell that kid to move up. So, protruding lower lip is often caused by jaw overbite. Yeah. Think about Bruce Springsteen's got that thing. Tina Mucklow. I agree. Hello, Tina. That would be funny. Hey, man, I do know that a stewardess knows about my channel. I won't say which one, but there is a stewardess who knows about my channel. So, and has watched videos. So, Tina, Flo, Alice, if any of you are watching, please holler back. Tina Mucklow saying, peer pressure is real. Dan made me smoke a cigarette and I'd already quit. He did. That's something else about this whole fake smoking Cooper. Like, Tina and him talked about smoking habits and he peer pressured into having a cigarette. I don't see McCoy, the fake smoker, or Vincent Peterson having to peer pressure this girl into having a cigarette. That seems kind of stupid. Nose is quite rare. It is. Good Lord. Date of 2025 CooperCon, sometime in 2020. Yeah, there it is. Oh, that's not it. Never mind. Looks like just like McCoy. Thank you, Mini Pup. What if he looked like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood? Would you consider adding a good quality version of the sketches with the sunglasses on your site? They are. Those are, I mean, if you look at my website, on my website, I've got CGI enhanced sketches. So go to my website, norjack.org, and go to sketches and you'll see enhanced ones. Okay. I challenged Dan Grifter to debate you on Facebook Live so he couldn't edit what you say. I assume he will not. No, Dan will not take. Look, Dan had his 15 minutes of fame, and I think he knows the jig is up. Dan surely knows that at this point. He shouldn't have messed with me on that. Okay. Astaire's lowered at 7:42 p.m. Cooper jumps at 8:11 p.m. Doesn't this time lapse suggest Cooper had a planned drop zone? Well, it suggests that he knew geography enough to know that in between Tacoma and Vancouver area is nothing but a bunch of trees. It's Weyerhaeuser timberland, timber country, wilderness, true wilderness. That is the wilderness that I'm sure that TV show coming out next month is going to try to say that Cooper jumped into, but to make it more dramatic. But yeah, I think it just shows that he knew the area, that he knew, okay, it's too late to jump outside Seattle and it's too soon to jump in front of Portland. So I'll wait. I do think Cooper could see the lights through the clouds. I mean, that's anybody who's flown in like small aircraft. If you've ever flown in like a Cessna or something at 10,000 feet, hell yeah. You can absolutely see the glow of cities from the clouds at that height. Okay. The Dracula sketch looks like Lyndon Johnson. Does. I agree. Grifters find each other. McCoy kids gravitated to a grifter. Well, no, they gravitated to him, but he sought them out and told them what they wanted to hear. Nikki says, Brian was recently offered $23,000 for his star note and he turned it down. I'll be damned. Wow. Brian's looking for closer to $50,000. Holy smokes. Yikes. I have a restored 1971 Dodge Dart Swinger. Well, how about that? That's cool. But it was a old model Dodge Dart, apparently. Have I looked at Joe Lakic? Yes, I have. Joe Lakic is not a good suspect at all. Sorry, Bill. I know Bill Bronze is watching. I do not like Joe Lakic because I don't know why he would do this. Joe Lakic, for those who don't know, his daughter was killed. Susan was killed in a hijacking a month earlier. Hijacker was her estranged husband. Ended up shooting her, shooting the pilot, killing him, killed his wife, killed her, killed the pilot, then killed himself. And Lakic sued the FBI and actually won. It's actually the first time the FBI by a federal court was ever determined to have been guilty of a wrongful death. They lost that lawsuit and they got a good chunk of money out of it too. So Lakic didn't need to, I mean, the theory is that was his grudge. So let's think about this, people. If your daughter is killed in a hijacking, how is going to extort $200,000 from an insurance company getting vengeance on the FBI? I mean, if your daughter's killed by a hijacker, you're going to go threaten other men's daughters with death. Lakic is not good. His head's too blocky too. He looks like Reca a little bit. I don't like Lakic as a suspect. And I just don't think look, Lakic adopted his granddaughter was like 3 months old at the time. He adopted his dead daughter's kid immediately. So he's not suicidal to go do all this. And again, how is that getting vengeance on the FBI to go steal money from a bank? I mean, whatever. Joe Lakic has a grudge. I mean, he had a grudge, but how was that fulfilling his grudge? It was Ted Braden. We can go. Baba Booey says it was Ted Braden. Now we can go home. Glenn Campbell, here we go. A non-Cooper question. The rest you can tune out. What are your top 5 favorite albums by the Beatles as solo artists? Okay. Plastic Ono Band is really good. Obviously, the first Lennon album. Ram is really good by McCartney. Living in the Material World by George Harrison's good. Imagine, obviously, is a good album. And there's a McCartney one. I guess Band on the Run for Wings is good, too. Yeah, Band on the Run is a pretty good album. Okay. But no, I'm a Lennon guy, so most of John's stuff is good. If you can, it's funny, like, Yoko has songs on John's albums, and I know some older people who said that they used to make tapes of John's albums, and they would just make sure that they would de-Yoko-ize John's albums. They'd just erase the Yoko songs and have cassette tapes of just the John songs, which is what I would do too. I don't blame them. What about Orville Lions? Okay, well, I mean, you know, Orville, what about him? He has a pouty lip, that's for sure. Yeah, the problem is the passengers didn't know Cooper was a hijacker. That's why I just don't like the passengers much, except for Bill. I think Bill, like I said, had a reason to be doing this. I'm new to the Cooper case. What are the 3 best books I should read? Well, Bruce Smith's book is good. My book, when it comes out this year sometime. Bruce Smith's book's good. Marty Andrade's book is good. As far as like just Cooper non-suspect books. Non-suspect books, there really aren't that many. I would say if you can get a copy, a $50 copy of Norjack. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll put, there's 4 that I would have value. That's going to be Ralph Himmel's Norjack. You can get a copy from the grandson. He sells them on eBay for $50. New edition copies. Some of them are signed even. So Norjack by Himmelsbach. It was ghost written by a guy. It has some factual errors. There's some Himmelsbach spin in there. Richard Tusaw's book, you can find that online. And you don't even have to buy those. You can go on archive.org and get a free account and just type in Richard Tusaw and you can read that book online for free. Norjack's on there for free also. But Marty Andrade's book is good, of course. And then Bruce Smith's book. Those are the 4, like, until my book comes out. But those are the ones. Okay. Start with Skyjack. Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, Skyjack is good too. Gosh, I got to catch up. What are my thoughts on Edwards' proposed landing zone? Wrong. The problem with Edwards, Stuart, is that it's really convoluted, but he is, okay, so there were, I think, 4 guys for Northwest Airlines. I need Cunningham in here, but I think there are 4 guys who were taking notes, handwritten notes during the hijacking for Northwest Airlines. And we have them listening in to the hijacking in real time, and they're just handwriting little scribble notes. And they got to a certain area. I'm trying to remember this correctly. Okay, so I may be saying this wrong, but they got to, there are things called vortex, which are like, kind of like if you're flying in a, think about like, so vectors are airways, higher airways, jetways. They're like roads in the sky. People think planes just fly around. I used to think planes just flew around. It's like the ocean. People think, oh, if you're going to Europe, you just go on the water. No, there's airways and there's sea lanes, just like highways. Okay. So in airways, you come across things called vectors, which are like checkpoints sort of, and they're at certain spots, and they got to one of the vectors and everybody wrote down 818 when they got to this vector. But one guy wrote down 822 when they got to this vector. I don't know if he's brain farted or what. His watch was fast or something. I don't know, but basically it was too slow. But he's using this outlier to say that the plane was further south than it really was. So it's convoluted, but I don't, Edwards, I like Doc a lot. He's a friend of mine, but we have a disagreement on that. He's relying on an outlier. And I'm not a fan of outliers. CINI specified CINI specified Canadian currency. You sure about that, Nemo? I actually don't know that. I don't know about that, about the Canadian currency. Talking of bombs, has a cheap black suitcase with 8 sticks of dynamite and a road lamp battery been found in McCoy's garage yet? God, please don't give him any ideas. Do not give Grifter any ideas. Somebody said, oh, I shouldn't say that. Yeah. Ooh, cold-blooded there. What will happen first? The real Cooper is discovered or Ole Miss wins a national championship in football? Ole Miss will win a title in football as long as Lane Kiffin's the coach before Cooper's found, I think. I know you're not into true crime really, but are there any other mysteries you're into? I mean, Amelia Earhart. I like Amelia Earhart a lot. I've read some on the MH370 stuff, but Amelia Earhart, I guess, is the one that I know a little bit about. Other mysteries. I like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster stuff, but I think Bigfoot could be real. I don't obviously Nessie's not real, but big look, there's a lot of land in the Pacific Northwest and up in Yukon into Canada, Saskatchewan. Look, they didn't know gorillas were real. I don't think gorillas were received a scientific. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I'm not sure how to a classification. I'm not sure how to say that, but I don't think gorillas were scientifically valid as a species until the 20th century, maybe. So possibly there could be something in the great Northwest. I don't know. I mean, look, I know that people like to shit on the Patterson Gimli film, but how many monkey costumes back then had boobs bouncing around? If you look at the Bigfoot footage of Gimlin that they took, I don't know. That thing looks pretty convincing. I mean, this is the year that like Planet of the Apes came out. So you're saying that these guys, these hicks, had a better costume than Planet of the Apes? No, I don't think so. Possibly, I don't know, but Bigfoot's way more likely than Nessie. And there are photographs, I think, of Yeti prints at crazy altitudes. Like, why would someone go way up there to make a hoax? I don't think so. But Nessie's too. Now, Loch Ness, I've been to Loch Ness. It's very deep. It's like 900 feet deep. It's one of the deepest lakes in the world. And it does some weird things with the waves. And I was like, I see. When I was at law school at Cambridge, England's so small, people don't realize this. England is only 1,000 square miles bigger than Mississippi. So England is small. You can get around pretty quick. And I went to Loch Ness and hung out and looked for Nessie. And I saw these weird like waves that are in the shape, they're in the shape of humps. And I said, there's Nessie. That's where Nessie comes from, is these weird, people see the wakes in the water, looks funky. But no, Bigfoot's the one that I like. Okay, thank you, John, for the super chat there. The Lindbergh money was identified. That was in the 30s. Why little evidence of spending Cooper's money? Probably because he didn't spend it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I trust Cooper's MacGyvering skills that much. It's possible he lost the money, and hell, maybe that's why that's why nobody never found out who he was. He's too embarrassed to go like, I was DB Cooper at the bar, but I lost the money. What? So we know McNally lost the money when he jumped, so it's possible that Cooper would have as well. So but again, gosh, that numismatist, the guy who literally wrote the book called Currency, felt that it was statistically impossible for none of the Cooper bills to have come up hot on the NCIC, because the NCIC, it's the National Criminal Database, has all of the Cooper serial numbers input into their system. So if any of that money was ever destroyed or come through some hot transaction, it would have pinged it. But I mean, if he went to Vietnam or Colombia or Peru or somewhere, I mean, American money spends anywhere, right? When's my book coming out? I don't know. People are loud in my office. Come on. Is the McCoy fiasco run its course with Grifter? Has the McCoy? Yeah, I sure hope so. Hopefully me and Larry can get on some media shows here. Mary John says Rico Suave looks like Roger Moore. A little bit, yeah. See that? You need to have a CooperCon in the East. You know what? That's not a terrible idea. That'd be kind of a cool thing to try out one year, to have it in a different place. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be out in Portland. Okay. How ethnic did witnesses describe Cooper's appearance? Um, really, the only ethnic-ish comments we have, I mean, he's olive, right? But the only ethnic comments we have are from Flo and Robert Gregory. Flo says Cooper looked to be of Latin descent, and that's 10 minutes after she gets off the plane. She says he looked to be of Latin descent. And then we have Robert Gregory saying he looks a quarter Mexican or a quarter Native American. Very specific there, Robert Gregory, but Robert Gregory might have been drunk, by the way. I learned that recently from Bill Mitchell. He told me that we were talking about the drunk on the plane, and he said the drunk was an elderly man sitting in front of him. Well, the only elderly person on the plane was Robert Gregory. He was 71, and he was sitting in front of Bill. But I still think the drunk was George Lebissoniere. I actually sent Bill pictures of George Lebissoniere and Robert Gregory getting off the plane, and Bill said, I can't remember, but he just knew it was an elderly gentleman, and he was kind of surprised that the guy was acting that way due to his age. But anyway, Robert Gregory says looks a quarter Mexican. Robert Gregory cut out photographs. I actually have that edition somewhere. I actually ordered it online. Robert Gregory went and cut out from National Geographic. He cut out pictures of Mexicans and sent these clippings to the FBI saying, look at this. His cheeks should look like this and his forehead or whatever. So there's that. Okay. Can you talk more about your thinking on Uncle LD? Just because he had a mental breakdown doesn't lead him to being the hijacker. Well, no, of course not. But it makes him more likely, in my opinion. I mean, if I know that a suspect has some kind of weird, mental break, like, look, if Cooper was totally sane, then he's the only totally sane hijacker I have ever heard of. So I don't think he was totally in his right mind, because who does this? Really, I just don't see it. Something was going on with him, and LD having his wife kill him. His wife kills herself, and he ends up in a mental hospital and checks out of a mental hospital in Portland a month before the hijacking. It doesn't make him Cooper, but it makes him a hell of a lot better than I used to think that he was. I mean, clearly he was going through something at the time, and his brother worked for Boeing. So, and Cooper has this weird kind of thing where he seems to know stuff, but doesn't seem to know stuff. It's kind of a weird, he's almost like, I've talked about this before. If you know Star Trek, there is the unbeatable test, the Kobayashi Maru. And it's almost like, and in law school, we have these, in law school exams, they give you this crazy long fact pattern that's just bonkers, balls, nuts. And it's almost like Cooper, we're living in some like simulation or something where the Cooper case didn't happen or something. It's like the Cooper case was this evil invention by FBI people to like, it was almost like it's an invented case that is invented to bedevil the mind of everybody. Like it's an unsolvable case because you have this, there's so many contradictions, because sometimes Cooper seems smart. Sometimes he seems like a doofus. He is so, you cannot pin this guy down. His knowledge is so strange. What he does and doesn't know, or doesn't seem to know, or wants to know. I mean, it's so, no, I can't. What's going to happen to the Drop Zone DB Cooper thread with the website shutting down? I don't know. Is it back? Somebody said it might be back up. I don't know. Is it back up? People, somebody check. Okay. For your information, the Joe Johnston leads dried up. There is no mugshot or info from his booking in Longwoods. Did you? Yeah. Joe Johnston's not he dried up for me too. There was nothing I wanted to find that. Tina Mucklow, a coincidence. I don't know. As I've told people, that's the Bruce Smith woo-woo. That's about as far as I'll go on the Bruce Smith woo-woo is that. I just say, look, people, if Alice Hancock was the person who Cooper dealt with, and we found Cooper's money behind Alice's restaurant, we might go a little weird. Why don't we do that more with Tina Barr? I don't know. That seems so weird. I know it's spelled differently, but still, that's a little woo-wooish there. Lots of different sketches could have created a mess up. Yeah, well, that's the problem. I mean, that's why I just go with the first one. You know, I don't know if I trust other sketches because we've got a consensus already. We had a consensus, and this is a problem. And I've tried to explain this, and I'll have to make a whole video on this, but they thought what happened is in spring of 72, they kept getting all these young people. The problem is when Bing, if you actually look at the Bing sketch, let's look at Bing again. His eyes, if you cover his eyes up, it's his eyes that make him look so youthful, I think. He doesn't, like, for example, we've got the Bill Mitchell sketch. I mean, for those who haven't seen it, I made a sketch using, I came across the eyes that Bill Mitchell used. And Bill Mitchell, let's see, I'm trying to find this. Bill picked out a pair of eyes for Cooper, and I don't know whose eyes are on Bing. It's either Robert Gregory's eyes or it is the eyes of, or it's the eyes of Hal Williams picked that out. But let's see. Let me try to find this, people. Sorry. Where is that daggum sketch that? Okay, here it's kind of crummy here, but this is the eyes that is a primitive Photoshop I made. It's not very good, but these are the eyes that Bill picked out for Cooper. So if Bill's eyes had been on the Cooper sketch, it would have looked like that a little bit. I mean, again, it's not good, but he looks older than the Bing sketch for sure. But what happened is they thought that the Bing sketch, the FBI kept getting leads for people in their 20s. And the issue is that when the Bing sketch, when he shows up in newspapers on Bing with the eyes, newspapers they're washed out, right? So it loses all the facial wrinkles when it's reprinted in a paper. So they got all these leads of these young guys. And they said, we need to make the sketch older. So Charlie Farrell, who was this agent, the head Norjack agent at the time, goes and picks out a folder. He goes and picks out the sketch folder where all the sketch stuff is kept. And he's looking through it and he sees a document from Flo Schaffner saying, this sketch looks shitty. Basically, this sketch looks nothing like him. It should look more like KK51, this guy here. And he did not realize that she was talking about this guy. So Flo is saying this guy looks like crap. She says it should look more like KK51 and yada yada yada. And so, but he thinks there's a date. The date is an issue on there. He thinks that they're talking about Bing. So he's like, oh well, we need to redo the Bing sketch instead of just aging the Bing sketch up, which is what I feel like they should have done. I've got some kind of try to see if I've got some of the aged up. I've tried to, didn't do a good job of it. I have primitive Photoshop skills, but I've tried to age the Bing sketch up a little bit. And I've tried and it doesn't look great. Let me see. Here's, this might be an attempt at I can't tell if this is one of my bad attempts, but yeah, I've tried to age him up a little bit there and give him some color, but they should have just done that. I mean, they could have done that and just aged him up, right? They said we need to make him in color because they wanted to make him olive and they wanted to make him older. But instead of just aging the Bing up, because remember, he thought that Flo Schaffner, they thought was the best witness, was saying that Bing sucked. But she was just saying that Rico sucked. So that's why they redid the sketches. Fly jackets, people argue with me, but like we have the actual document that Charlie Farrell wrote saying, Flo Schaffner says that this sketch sucks. And he's clearly referencing Bing when he says that. So that was a mistake. They would not have, there was a consensus. No one bitched about Bing. No one was like, that's the most terrible thing I've ever seen. Tina says it looks 100% like him. At least Comp A does, not Bing, but Comp A back there. So, these guys really, I mean, never should have, even though they ended up saying, yeah, we like this guy here. They said they liked this guy here a year and a half later. I'm going with their memory 2 days later. I mean, people can bitch about that, but I've just come to that conclusion that doesn't make any sense. Okay. Oh, that's mean. It says Ryan debating Dan is pointless. Ryan is working on information and facts collected through investigation, and Dan is crashing Electras. Yeah, speaking of Amelia Earhart, Dan has that in common with Amelia Earhart. Now he crashed a Lakic Electra also. Yep. Who are the heaviest smokers among the suspects? Braden, Skip Hall. You will not see a photo. It is rare to see a photo of Skip Hall without a cigarette. That's one thing about Skip. That dude always has a cigarette in his hand, like always. I need to do a video explaining how to properly read the FBI files. Yeah, Matt, you're right. I should do that. I think that might be one of my next ones. They wouldn't call that heavy smoking. Well, he was able to do that without needing a drink. Ryan needs a soundboard. I do, like, or I should have the sound of Dan Grider going, what does he say? Ralph. That's like the only thing I like about Dan Grider is when he makes fun of Ralph Hemmelsbach. Has anyone done a 21st century psych profile on the type of person who might commit a crime like this? There was a 20th century, the Skyjacker book I've got over there by Hubbard. Hubbard interviewed over 100 hijackers and wrote a book about it. And will the Cubs win a World Series this century? Yeah, sure. I mean, they already have. They won in 2016. Okay, Wings' greatest hits. Hey, Wings is All Things Must Pass. Very good. That was a Beatles song. That's the crazy thing about the Beatles is like a lot of these solo songs, they're like bootlegs of them playing them with the Beatles, and they just were Beatles songs that didn't get picked up. A lot of George songs. Imagine was written with the Beatles. All Things Must Pass. Maybe I'm Amazed. Should have been a Beatles song. This would have been on the next, like if there was a album after Abbey Road, it would have had like Imagine, Maybe I'm Amazed. It Don't Come Easy, Ringo's song. All Things Must Pass. I already mentioned that. Isn't it a pity? What is Life? A lot of great songs would have been on the Beatles album that came after Abbey Road, if there would have been one. Yoko was Cooper. That's possible. Mary Johns, bold of you to assume I'd tune out a Beatles discussion. Man, I must be so far behind. Okay. Do I have a title for my book yet? It's just called DB Cooper, the FBI Files. Thought about calling it Unsub, but Unsub is what it's what the FBI called Cooper. Trying to come up with a trendy, cool name. Unsub, the longest manhunt in FBI history or something like that, right? But DB Cooper, the FBI Files, bada bing, bada boom. It works. John Benet Ramsey, the parents covered it up. I cannot cast aspersions on people, but that could be. Okay. Gorillas were verified. Okay, thank you, Alcal. In 1847. Well, still, that's modern era, right? That's after dinosaurs were discovered. I love that piece of trivia, by the way, that George Washington died never knowing what a dinosaur was. Like never even hearing of dinosaurs. George Washington, our president. Okay. What are your top 3 strange or weird coincidences in the whole Cooper case? All right. Well, I've talked about Joe Johnston. I will tell it again for the new viewers and new listeners. The day after the hijacking, the very first lead, the first lead they had was on Ted Mayfield. They like, oh, maybe this guy's the hijacker, but Ted called them like during the hijacking saying, hey, I can give you some advice on parachutes. And they're like, oh God, it's not Ted then, never mind. So that was their first thought, was Ted Mayfield, this local bank robber. I think not a bank robber, but he had a robbery on his record, and he was a skydiving crook. So they're like, oh, it must be Ted. But no, it wasn't Ted. I mean, actually, it's funny. In big words, you can read, there's like in the notes that the Northwest Orient guys have, they're on my website, norject.org. Somebody, big letters, one of the Northwest guys writes, Ted Mayfield, ? Or something like that. But anyway, The very first lead came from Arkansas. It was an Arkansas Little Rock FBI agent who said, hey, somebody called our office this morning and said, I know who this guy is. It's a guy named Joe Johnston. He was just paroled 5 months earlier from Minnesota or somewhere and is now on parole down here in Arkansas, 48 years old. He started going to our skydiving club, this old 48-year-old guy who's a bank robber, literally a bank robber, who's a small town. He's like a small unlicensed pilot, just a thug pilot. He's taking up skydiving at 48. He's mentioned hijackings before. This is probably your guy. So the FBI in Little Rock, they go to the post office and they say, hey, what is Joe Johnston's address in West Memphis, Arkansas, which is across the river from Memphis. West Memphis. West Memphis 3. That's a case I'm interested in a lot. The West Memphis 3 case. Anyway, in West Memphis, they go to this is the day after the hijacking. The FBI agents, they go to the post office and they say, hey, what is the address of Joe Johnston? So we can go find this guy. Post office guy says, Johnston, that guy. They looked him up and said, he started having his mail forwarded to Portland 2 months ago. What? And they said, and he had bought some Seattle and Portland area maps, like air maps. So it's like, okay, we got our guy done. The FBI's like, Joe Johnston's it. We got him. And that's the first person. He is suspect number one. You see his suspect number 1, Joe Johnston, Joseph Henry Johnston. And they show his photos to the Stews. The Stews say, that's not him. And they go, oh, really? But then the FBI gets a call from the Woodland Police Department saying, hey, that, because they put out an all persons bulletin, all points bulletin, maybe it's all persons, all points. Anyway, but I put out a bulletin that said, everyone in America, look for Joe Johnston. Well, Woodland PD down there by the drop zone calls the Seattle office and says, hey, we have a Joseph Henry Johnston in here. We arrested him yesterday, the day of the hijacking. We arrested him yesterday at 2 p.m. for a DUI in Woodland. So think about that. A skydiving, talk about hijacking, bank robber, 48 years old, takes up skydiving, moves to Portland from Arkansas 2 months earlier, is arrested in the drop zone. Literally as Cooper's plane's going overhead. So it's like, was this guy an accomplice? Was Joe Johnston an accomplice, perhaps? Did he drop Cooper off at the airport? Did they have drinks at the Chili's and he got a little drunker and his job was to go wait somewhere? His job was to go drive back to their motel or something and wait for the phone to ring. And when Cooper lands, he calls, ring, 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 ring. Oh, shit. Did Joe get drunk? So maybe, and this guy ends up dying like mysteriously. He's dead in, I think, March of 72 in Portland, like 49 or 48. He may have turned 49, but he was 48, 49. So was this guy Cooper's accomplice? Perhaps. That's a coincidence. Gosh, there's some other coincidences too. I think Tina Barr and Tina Mucklow is a weird one. I'd have to think about coincidences. There's a lot. Other mysteries. The pizza bomber, the Max Headroom hack. I like the Max Headroom hack broadcast. That's cool that they've never found that guy out. Good for him. I don't care. The Soder children. I don't know the Soder children. I know the Yuba County 5 because of Drew. The WOW signal. I saw a thing just a few months ago where they're almost certain that they've explained the WOW signal now, which is sad because I think there's aliens out there. I don't think they visited us. I think space is too big, right? Physics works. It's universal. So I love Fermi paradox stuff, right? The Fermi paradox. Where are all the aliens? If there's so many, there should be lots of aliens out here. There's some thoughts of that maybe our universe is not that old, considering how long it could live. I think the universe could possibly live for trillions of years, and we're only at 13 billion or something, right? So could be that we're just the first. Maybe we're the first intelligent life in the universe, or the galaxy at least. Galaxy. I mean, universe is big, but in our galaxy, there's 250,000 stars. So maybe we're the first. Problem is they have to find, if they find one microbe, they've not found any life outside of our planet, right? So that's why people are like, oh, who cares if they find a microbe or something that's fossil on Mars? They should, because if you find a fossil of a microbe, even of an organism on Mars, that's the next planet over. I mean, mathematically, that means that everywhere in the galaxy, there's possibly life. If we can have life on our planet and the one next door to us, even if it's microscopic microbes, hell yeah. But right now, mathematically, scientists have to say, hey, we're the only ones we know of. And if we can find one thing, then that makes it almost impossible if there's not. But maybe it's a fluke. Maybe it's God, whatever. But maybe we're just a fluke. Maybe we are the flukiest of flukes on Earth, you know? Okay. Don't trigger Brandon Arnold. Okay. Scott's drinking too much is what caused the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah, I'm so far behind people. I've got to catch up. What's my opinion on the land between the lakes? Don't know that one. I heard they didn't start recording serial numbers of destroyed money until much later than DB. Yes, they did not. 1990. I got an email from somebody. I don't know if you're watching. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but it's an email somebody sent me, and he said he remembers going for a job interview for like the Fed or something, Treasury maybe, or banks, and they had just started. He said, I was just started seeing when they were destroying currency and recording numbers. He goes, that was in the early 90s. And I said, yeah, it was 1990 when they started. So remembers that. Has there been a new vault drop this month? No. Some guys probably wait until Monday. They'll probably drop Monday. Good night, Ian. Patterson film footage of Bigfoot is not legit. It's a proven hoax. It was actually Richard McCoy in an ape suit. It was Grifter in an ape suit, right? Didn't Bill say geeky old white guy? Yes. What's funny is Bill is the only witness. There's 10 eyewitnesses who give description-ish of Cooper, and Bill's the only one who doesn't mention his skin tone, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah, Bill M was young, so maybe he thought every man looked old. Yeah, and look, George Lebissonier looks old. He's only George. I think Lebissonier was like 49, but George Lebissonier looks like an old man. He looks drunk too. I think he was the drunk. I broke it really down. I agree with Ryan on revisiting LD as a suspect. He broke it down really well on Darren's show. Yeah, LD's not the worst. What is my number one takeaway from the tie analysis? It's fluid. How about that? It changes every year, it seems. What's the best ballad Cooper song? So I don't know the song, but okay, Scribble's got a good song. If there's a rap video, there's a DB Cooper rap that I really like that's out there. I think if you just type in maybe not rap battle, but maybe DB Cooper Scribbles or something. Sorry, Gabe. I know you're watching, hopefully. But Scribble, SKRIB. There's also a DB Cooper song by some girl singer that I kind of like. It's a kind of not a ballad. It's kind of chilled out. Can I cite the rule against perpetuities verbatim? Now that is a lawyer joke if I've ever heard one. You must be a lawyer, Hunter. That is a dorky law joke. Good God, no. Okay. Thank you, John, for the super chat. Did DB Cooper really jump up and down like a kid? No. Let's talk about that. That is Flo being in her feels, I think. Sorry, Flo, if you're watching, but call me. I think that Flo did not like Cooper. Cooper scared the shit out of Flo, I think. But they weren't so scared because they do go back there and shoot the crap with Cooper, right? They're back there talking to him about parachutes and things. So after the passengers get off the plane, Flo and Alice are just sitting there. Flo is sitting in row, I don't know what row that is. Maybe like 6 or 5. Flo is sitting in the first of her section. Flo is It's almost like the Titanic or something. These stewardesses were in their class sections. Alice, even when there's no passengers on the plane, Alice, a first-class stewardess, is sitting in the jump seat for first class. Flo is sitting as far away from Cooper as she can, but still in her section. Flo is sitting she's sitting on the front seat of the tourist section, which what we would call coach now. So they're sitting there and they're bored. And eventually Alice stands up and is like, this is stupid. And Alice goes back, starts marching back to the back to go talk to Cooper. Alice is small. Alice is 5'2", but she's going to give Cooper a piece of her mind. And so she goes back. Little Alice goes marching back there. And I guess Flo decided to go with her. Maybe Alice goes, come on, Flo. But Flo gets up and they both go beep bopping and down there. I write in my book that Cooper looks up and doesn't seem to care. It's like, hey, what's up? You know? And they start talking to Cooper. And Cooper starts joking around, and he pulls a dad joke on Flo. He says, here's the money bag. Isn't it really heavy? Because Flo's kind of small too. Flo's half Filipino. She's little too. And she goes, oh yeah, great. Big heavy bag. Thanks a lot. And hands it back. And she told the FBI that she felt that he was patronizing her, that he was just mocking her, or that I read it as, this is why we need audio recordings of his interviews so we can pick up what her tone was, right? But I read it not as, she says that he was acting immature and childish. I think that what she means by childish is that he was just in a good mood when the money came, and that he was joking about it. And she didn't think it was appropriate to joke, because it's like, hey man, you scared the hell out of me. This isn't funny for us. We need to get off the plane. You got dynamite there, man. And here you are making jokes about it. You're making light of a serious situation that scared her. And I don't think she appreciated that. So I think that she felt that Cooper was patronizing her. I think she says that even. She's in her 302, says something like she was, I forget what the term is. She was indulging him or something like that. Okay. Do I think the Fazio family found more money? No, they did not. Where's the turkey wobble in the Bing sketch? It's not there, because they didn't put it on any of the sketches. Okay. The drifter suspect that answered the door and said, is this about the hijacking that the FBI was excited about? Why did they not pursue him further? A reason he was ruled out. Any pics of him? That's Orville Lions. And yes, I've got a photo of Orville somewhere. I mean, find Orville. That's Orville Lions, the guy. I like Orville a lot as a suspect. He's good. His file's incomplete. So his file ends on a cliffhanger. The last thing we have of his file in the 302s is, let's send his photograph to the stewardesses. Now, they had not shown any photographs to the stews in 8 years or something by that point. So that was the big guns. They were like, okay, because there's a 302 that's out there that says, don't show the stewardesses any more photos of suspects. It's not going to help us unless there's no other way to get rid of a suspect. And even if they said Orville Lions doesn't look like Cooper, I mean, I don't know if that's dispositive enough for me that late in the game, right? That's 8 years after Flo says I wouldn't be able to recognize him from a photograph. But here's Lions as a young guy. Look at the Bing sketch behind me there. Face shape similar, pouty, kind of a thick lower lip, little beakish little nose. Orville Lions is a good suspect. He was a smoke jumper, heavy smoker, polite. Okay. Do I have photos of Alice Hancock? Only 2 I can find online easily. Not many. No, Alice is difficult to find. Gosh, I'm so far behind. I'm sorry, people. What is worse, Eric Eulis's Western Flight Path or FBI conclusions that DB Cooper died and money got to the Tina Bar through natural means? Okay, for one thing, the FBI did not, the FBI, in fact, it's the opposite, David. We have a document where the FBI says to the FBI director, there is no evidence that the unsub, name unsub, they call them, we have no evidence that unsub's parachute failed to deploy. That is FBI speak for this son of a bitch got away. Okay, that's them admitting defeat as far as him dying. The FBI did not believe he died. I've talked to those agents from back then. The only FBI agent who actually leans toward death is Larry Carr. Even Ralph Himmelsbach, for all his, and Cooper crawled to a stream and died. Even Himmelsbach says 50-50. So, and again, Himmelsbach was not a Norjack agent. Okay. Eric's Western Flight Path's pretty bad. Okay. I would like to hear you talk about the West Memphis 3 case more. Do you think the teens did it? No. I don't. And I tell you why. So when I was a prosecutor, I had to deal with murders. I was in 3 counties that had plenty of murders, a lot of gang activity and different kinds of things like that. So I dealt with murders and such and such. And think about the West Memphis 3 thing. There was 3 little boys who were 8-year-old boys who were tortured and then murdered. Okay. It's rare to find one person who would be sick enough to do that. Rarer still to find 2, and rarer still to find 3 who would go along with that. 3 teenagers who would go along with that. Okay. So the likelihood, that's why people are like, it's one person did this, because the likelihood, and it was somebody who knew the kids too. That's the thing about that, is that they did not know these boys, the teenagers, Miskelly, Eccles, and Baldwin. They didn't know the boys. And so how would they have gained their confidence to do a hog tie them and do all this kind of stuff, right? It's just doesn't sit right. And in fact, they have found a hair, I think, since in one of the ligatures, I think, of the boys were tied up. It's gruesome. I mean, go watch Paradise Lost on HBO. It's a show called, there's 3, some of the greatest documentaries ever made. They're filmed over, I think, 20 years, called Paradise Lost. Goes from the start, because they had cameras in the courtroom, which was rare back then, but for some reason they allowed cameras in the courtroom. They allowed HBO cameras. HBO probably paid the county some money, but we've got trial footage of the teenagers when they're 16, 17. And then we got them being released in part 3, 20 years later. It's great. So the Paradise Lost documentaries are wonderful, but I don't think they did it. That was, I'm from the South. I'm close enough to that area that I remember Bible Belt mania. That was Bible Belt junk back in the 90s. I mean, I remember, thinking about when Columbine happened, we had a school shooting. In fact, the first school shooting that actually made the news was the high school down the road from me, Pearl, Mississippi. A guy named Luke Woodham shot up the school, killed a couple kids, and killed his mom earlier that day. Luke Woodham, Pearl, Mississippi. And that was the first of that was before Columbine and before the one in Kentucky, maybe. I think it was maybe Kentucky, Paducah, I think was before Columbine. There were 2 before Columbine, I think, but same year, I think. But anyway, where was I going with that? What was I saying about Pearl? I don't remember. I don't know what I was getting at about. I had a brain fart. Sorry, people. Interesting. What was I even talking about? Okay. I'll skip around. Yes, definitely watch Paradise Lost for real. It's really, really good. Matt Quick says, Ryan mentioned a new show on Cooper coming up. Anyone have info on that? I do. I helped out a little bit on that. I'm not supposed to. Mike Davis, our paratrooper of the year who spoke at Cooper, he'll be on it. Oh, thank you. Let me jump back. Bible Belt Satanic Panic. Yes. So when Luke Woodham happened, in Pearl, there was all this stuff. Remember how, like in Columbine, they called them the trench coat mafia, or maybe it was the same sort of thing in Pearl. Like Luke Woodham hung out with kids who were into Marilyn Manson and things like that, which I think, who gives a shit? Like nowadays, that's so almost like the emo. That became emo, what we would call emo or goth kids. They became almost a joke. But at the time, when that first started, especially in the Bible Belt where I'm from, that was the devil. I remember I went to go see Marilyn Manson when I was, I think, 16 in Jackson, Mississippi, and a lot of Christians out there holding signs up and stuff, going to hell for going to see Marilyn Manson. I'm like, this guy's like David Bowie, he's just a performance artist, right? It's silly. But anyway, the Bible Belt. But so those boys in the West Memphis 3, they listen to Metallica and stuff. And so in those documentaries, Metallica never licenses their music for movies and things. Very rarely, kind of like the Beatles in that way. But they did let the music be used all throughout the Paradise Lost documentaries because those boys were Metallica fans, and they're like, "Oh, they listen to heavy metal music. They must be murderers." And so anyway, okay. Ryan, who is your favorite suspect until now? Well, I like Ted Braden. A little short, but I like Ted Braden. I do like Skip Hall a lot now. Skip Hall scores the highest. I have a matrix, a mathematical equation thing that I've got, and he scores the highest of anybody ever. Skip Hall does. Like I said, I don't know. I'll tell you something else I like about Skip Hall. So Cooper, I don't think this was his first skydive, but I don't think he was a skydiver, right? So now paratroopers are not skydivers. Paratroopers are static line jumpers. They jump at 1,000, 2,000 feet, right? They jump out, their parachute's pulled for them, and they just go down. They're not free falling, right? That's not paratroopers. Now, paratroopers might get into skydiving. A lot of the skydivers who got into skydiving in the 60s were former paratroopers because they kind of liked that stuff. But Skip Hall, though, was a guy who we believe almost certainly had to have 5 free falls to join their little gang, Interpin, these little goons who would jump into Cuba and cause mayhem in the early 60s, right? These anti-communist people. And but he wasn't, Skip Hall was not a military parachutist. He wasn't a skydiver, but he had free fall experience where he would have had confidence. So Skip Hall, I like his parachuting skill. Some say Ted Braden might be too skilled to do this, but I don't know. But Verdal, yes, if I had to go with a non-military type guy, I like Verdal still. So Verdal, Braden, and Hall and Orville Lions is my favorite suspect, obviously, right now. Okay. I think DB Cooper gave 3 bundles to Tina and then she buried it. Yeah, I mean, she was living there at the time. And when the money was found, she was living down the river from Portland. Somebody mentioned a while back, and this is the benefit of having these shows, is that somebody asked me, was Cooper ever alone with Tina Mucklow's purse? And he sure enough was. So Tina goes back to the back after she brings the money on the plane. The passengers are off. Tina goes back there and says, "Hey, can I have some of the money in that bag?" She goes, "No." She says, "There's a lot of money in that bag. Can I have some?" And Cooper goes, "Sure. Here you go." And he hands her a packet of money or a bundle. He either hands her $2,000 or $6,000 probably. And she goes, "Oh, we're not allowed to accept gratuities on the airline, sir." And she hands it back to him. So maybe Cooper put it in her purse when she was up. I mean, he was alone back there for 30 minutes and her purse was back there. So maybe he put it in her purse and she found it later and just got scared and didn't want to, who knows? But that's conspiracy stuff. But I mean, they're not going to search Tina Mucklow. I mean, she's a girl. This is the 70s. They're not going to like frisk her or anything. Does Larry Carr really think Cooper died in the jump, or does he have to publicly follow the FBI's official narrative? Well, I mean, their official narrative is just that he's disappeared. I don't think, anything. No, Larry Carr genuinely believes that. No, I'm friends with Larry. And in fact, I'm going to try to have Larry on next week. How about that? I'll have Larry on the show next week, maybe. No, Larry is a true believer that he thinks Cooper died. So if I was hijacked for 5 hours, I would memorize every detail. Maybe. I bet Tina dreams about DB often. I don't know. A lot of people were like, I think for Tina, it's like, look, this was a thing that happened to me. and I moved on. She does not like I was traumatized by this. She's like, it was just a thing that happened, and it's affected my life, but it wasn't, it's just a thing I was involved in. I don't think it's any more than that. Flo, though, like I said, Flo was kind of messed up by it. I think Flo thought that Cooper was going to come for her. She said that. She was scared to crank her car sometimes. She said she thought her car was going to blow up or something. So Flo, yeah. And then Tina got harassed. Tina did get harassed. We have an FBI file where there's this weird FBI file where Tina calls the FBI and says, hey, somebody called my house last night. And she goes into this thing about, she says, somebody called my house last night and said, hey, what are you wearing? And I said, pajamas. Like, why did she even respond to that? But she goes, I said pajamas. And then the guy said, hey, well, why don't you take all your clothes off? And then she hung up. But I just like the fact that she answered the guy. I don't know if it's 3 a.m. and she's like, what? He goes, what are you wearing? Pajamas. But then the guy's like, take off your clothes. And so she hung up on him. But that kind of stuff sucked. And then, of course, she had to read that. I don't know if she ever read it, but there's a terrible Hustler magazine article, part of the Jack Kofelt grift, came out in maybe the 83, I think. It's talking about Cooper grabbing her ass and, some kind of sexual thing going on between the two of them. It's just pathetic. I'm surprised she didn't sue them for that. Okay. At least one of the stewardesses wished the passengers a happy Thanksgiving. I think they all did. I think they all wanted to keep up with the illusion. Tina definitely said that she was saying, happy Thanksgiving. Take care. Bye-bye. Al Cal. Man, some people funny. People are funny in here. Dan Greider has already discovered life on Mars. It was in a meteorite found stuffed into McCoy's backpack. Dan. Okay. Ryan, out of curiosity, where do you land on the Amelia Earhart theories? Crash and sink, Japanese capture, deserted island, or the newer Bunka Island crash site? I would say Niki Mororu or Gardner Island. I think that the Bevington object, they call it, there was a photograph taken by a sailor named something Bevington, a British sailor, I think in 1939. Gardner Island was uninhabited, and his ship went by Gardner Island, and he took a photograph of the island. And years later, somebody came across this photo and was analyzing it. And like in one of the part of the photograph, you can see what looks like a Lockheed Electra wheel. Like, it's man-made for sure. Whatever it is man-made. It's got right angles and things. And it looks like a Lockheed Electra wheel. And I think that when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, I think that she somehow got like I guess Hillary's she must be into Amelia Earhart or something. I don't know. But no, before the jokes come, Hillary Clinton did not make anyone suicide themselves. She did not make Fred Noonan kill himself. I know those jokes are coming. It's a Hillary joke. But anyway, she had the State Department do an analysis on that photograph. I don't know why, and they determined that it was a Lockheed Electra wheel in that photograph. So there was no reason for a Lockheed Electra or any plane for that matter to be anywhere near Gardner Island in 1939. It's not realistic. Okay. So now I like that. And I think they found female cosmetic containers from the 30s on that island. And that's a grisly fate there. I think the idea is that she crashed she crash landed on the reef, and that Fred was really injured and died shortly thereafter from his injuries. And she ended up living as a castaway and dying of starvation or whatever, and was eaten by crabs. Although there were female remains found on Niki Mororu. When World War II happened, the British showed back up, and I think they transported these bones. They found one body there, and it turns out it was a female body, they think. And it was a female's body, and I think the bones were sent to Hong Kong, and bones got blown up during the World War II. So we'll never know. But a Caucasian woman's bones, they think, was found on the island. So Okay. Donald says that Hillary's chief of staff, John DePodesta, or not John, John Podesta, is into paranormal and true crime. Bill Clinton did not have aviations with Amelia Earhart. No. Come on, guys. The crew were hijacked. No reason the authorities would search them as they left the plane. Yeah, they're not going to do that. I agree. Oh, okay. Ryan, can you finish your thought on the new show coming out? The Satanic Panic interrupted your train of thought again. Yeah, I know. That new show, so Mike Davis is in it. I know Eric Eulis is in it. Of course, Eric's in it. They didn't want to fly me out there. Their budget wasn't enough, and I don't know what I've even done, but I do know the producer. I've talked to him. I shared my drop zone stuff. They may even have incorporated. I'm not sure yet. Mike is under. They're under the. They can't talk about it and everything, but I think that they may. I don't know if they're going to do this or not, but when I told the producer, I said, "Look, nobody was on the ground. There were no boots on the ground in Cooper's supposed drop zone for 40 hours or whatever." He goes, "Oh, that's a great idea. We can have like a ticking clock episode where it's like, oh, can you get out of the woods in 40 hours?" I'm like, "Oh, don't put him in the woods." He goes, "Well, I know." So I think they're going to say that. I mean, it's like a wilderness survival show or something. So I think they're going to have him landing in the trees, and I think they're going to. It's sad. I think they're going to reinforce the idea that Cooper landed in the wilderness on this show, which is bullshit. Cooper was just as likely to land on somebody's roof as he was in a tree. I think that is the biggest misnomer about this whole case, is that Cooper landed in the wilderness, when actually our mind's eye of Cooper needs to be that he jumped over flat terrain. I mean, again, where Cooper jumped, where the FBI thinks he jumped now, Orchards, was there was a skydiving center in Orchards, right? So there's that. I'm going to turn this lamp off. It's getting a little hot in here. There we go. Sorry, you can't see me now. I'm not as bright and fresh, but I'm sweating. It's kind of hot in here. Okay. It's called Hunting History on History Channel. Yep. O.J. Simpson was innocent. Okay, I don't know about that. I mean, if it wasn't O.J., then it was his son, I guess, right? Take a drink. Excuse me, folks. Okay. Wilderness in Washington is generally mountainous. Yes. Only a crazy person would jump over mountains. Yeah, that's just, I don't buy that. Now Ryan has an olive complexion. Am I olive now? Yes, I guess I am olive. I'm sweating like McCoy. Hot. Okay. Tina didn't stay in a convent. That's a life decision. No, I don't know how long. I think she was there for 7-8 years, though. I forget what, it's like Mount Carmel or something like that. I forget what the actual, Let's see. Yeah, I agree. Victor 23, Seattle to Portland flies right over I-5. Easy walk to a phone. Not in Ariel, Washington. No, he didn't jump in Ariel, Jen. Remember, Cooper jumps much lower, much further south, I think. I think most of us think these days he jumped at least Battleground or Orchards, so he's further south than Ariel. That was the messed up drop zone. Which Cooper book, in or out of print, is the most factual, best detailed? Probably Richard Tusaw's D.B. Cooper, Dead or Alive, because he is the only person who's written a book who actually spoke to all the main participants. So Tusaw, by the way, that's behind me. That's right there. That is the Tusaw parachute that Earl Cossey made for Richard Tusaw. I got that from Tusaw's estate. And anyway, Tusaw's book is good. I actually have Bruce's copy. My copy of the Tusaw book says to Bruce Smith from Richard Tusaw. Yeah, Bruce. I got Bruce's book. But anyway, Tusaw's book is out of print. What is the worst D.B. Cooper book you've read? what's it called? Oh, the Last Master Outlaw. There we go. The Rackstraw book. I mean, just they have Cooper wearing a hat. Cooper wearing a hat? Yeah. No. No. Ha ha ha. Well, ha ha ha. I've got a copy of that. That's, I mean, only like one chapter that's about Cooper, really. Am I wearing jammies? No, I'm wearing these are sharks for Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the Land Sharks. In fact, my socks I'm wearing, let me show you my socks. I got Land Shark socks. Ole Miss won the bowl game last night. So I'm decked out in Ole Miss stuff. Look at my socks, people. See, I have sharks on my, see, the Ole Miss defense, they got fins up. They're the Land Sharks. There's no Land Shark. I was an SNL skit from years ago, but we got sharks. Ole Miss has no mascot. So we got a Labrador Retriever as a mascot. Sometimes we have an old man as a laptop. Maybe a top hat while I'm at it. I need a shark top hat. Yeah. So yeah, sharks galore today. I'm not wearing shorts. I'm wearing jeans. Okay. Top 5 bass players. Well, McCartney, obviously. Les Claypool's good. I like Rob Trujillo from Metallica. Ginger Baker from Cream is really good. John Paul Jones is. Wait, Ginger Baker's a drummer. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Wait, who am I thinking of? Jack Bruce? Yeah, Les Claypool's good. Primus. Geddy Lee. There we go. Good ones. Yeah. But yeah, John Paul. I'm sorry. Yeah, no. I'm sorry, folks. I got my Cream messed up. Cooper's grudge was that somebody mislabeled Ginger Baker as a bass player. Jack Bruce was the bass player from Cream. Okay. Whistle's good. Yeah, Flea. Of course, Flea. Flea's great. Flea is really good, actually. Flea is really talented. I like Flea a lot. But yeah, McCartney, if I'd have a super band, you give me McCartney on bass for sure. If I got to pick one person from what? From what are we talking about? Cooper had a grudge with Ono. Yep. Question, if I came to meet you for 5 hours in a work meeting, would you remember me? Sure. Especially you, Jay. I remember you. James Jamerson is the greatest bass. I don't know James Jamerson. Jason Newsted. Yep. Newsted's good. We all have a grudge with Ono. You know what's great is, God, Yoko. What's great about Yoko is that there's in that Beatles documentary that came out a few years ago, the Peter Jackson one. It's a great part where this is in 1969 and Paul is saying, won't it be wild if in 50 years people are like, the Beatles broke up because Yoko sat on an amp? So like very prescient of him to joke about that. But no, Yoko is not what broke the Beatles up. I mean, that's not, they were, you know what's crazy about the Beatles is that, coolest fact about the Beatles is that when they broke up, none of them were yet 30 years old. They were all in their 20s. I think when the Beatles broke up, I think George Harrison was 26. Just nuts. Oh. She's just crap as an artist. Yeah, Yoko is. Yoko is like a pseudo intellectual wannabe. That's my mother hated Yoko so much you'd think she stole my father. Yeah. Not a fan. Tina can't remember a guy she spent 5 hours with. I mean, she remembers him. She just wasn't looking at him that much. Remember, the guy's wearing sunglasses and she's avoiding looking at him. I mean, if you were in the meeting, if you came to my office here and met with me for 5 hours, I'm looking at you. Tina avoided looking at him because she didn't want to antagonize him. It's what you're supposed to do. If you're being robbed at gunpoint, somebody's got a gun at you and robbing you, just look down. Don't look at them. Like, don't make eye contact because that's just antagonizing them. I preferred the Beatles more when they were still closer to the Buddy Holly sound. I prefer the middle part, right? Rubber Soul and Revolver are my Beatles stuff there. That's what I'm big into. I like Revolver. I think I'm glad to see Revolver has become the, when I was younger in the 90s, it was Sgt. Pepper was always the number one album of all time, right? Lately, it seems to be Revolver, which is it should be. I think Pepper is. The thing about Pepper is Sgt. Pepper, Strawberry Fields Forever, and Penny Lane were made during Sgt. Pepper, essentially same sessions, sort of, very at the start of those sessions. So, like, the Beatles didn't put a lot of their singles on their albums. Things like "She Loves You," "I Want to Hold Your Hand," Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane. I mean, a lot of their like biggest hits, "We Can Work It Out," "Day Tripper," a lot of these songs were never on albums. They were just singles. So, but yeah, if Sgt. Pepper had Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever on it, then hell yeah, best album ever. But it doesn't. Or for Beatle people out there, "It's All Too Much." It's called "It's All Too Much." That is the most underrated Beatles song ever. I guarantee you most of you don't even know that song. It's a George Harrison song that was recorded during Sgt. Pepper. Now, if that was on there and not his "Within You, Without You" Indian song, which is like, okay, cool, whatever. But like, "It's All Too Much," man. That sounds like Jimi Hendrix. Like, there's some guitars in there. Look up "It's All Too Much" on YouTube when you're done with me. It's all too much. That is a hell of a song. Like that song sounds like it came out 10 years ago. Insane. Okay. Yes, not putting the singles on albums is one of the most badass moves of all time. It really is. How old am I? How old do you think I am, Dodge? Here we go. Let's play a game there. I think some of you know my age. Don't cheat, people. Like, Dodge, how old do you think I am? Let's play that Cooper game, right? How old do I look? REO Speedwagon. The Beatles sound changed after, you think I'm 35? Okay. The Beatles sound changed after I'm 37. Okay. 35, 37, 35 to 38. Ryan is old enough to be smart enough to love the Beatles. True. Although, hey, I have a daughter who likes the Beatles, though. So, because of me. 57. Now, there we go. I'm Bordal's age. 44. Okay. How old am I? I don't know how old I am. See, that's the thing. It's like when you get old, as soon as I think about it, I'm 42. So, yes, 42. So, this is what I'm talking about, people. That's the problem with Cooper, is like that is a rough age. As far as all the ages of like people, I think the hardest thing of all sexes, ages, the hardest thing to determine, the hardest like group to figure out is men 35 to like 50, maybe even older than that, especially when you're wearing sunglasses even. So, I mean, put sunglasses on and you really can't tell, a guy's age. So I think that a lot of people, that's the problem with Cooper's age, is it's just difficult because he could have been 37. It could have been 55. It's just, if a guy was in his 60s, you can say it looks like he's in his 60s, but 40s to 50, mid 50s is tough. Yeah, it is tough. The doctor on the TV show House is a British native, yet he talks on the show without the accent. Could Cooper have been British? Nah. I mean, could have been, I guess, but he didn't say a lot, but let's not go into that. I mean, that's when we get into Eric Eulis La La Land. You can just invent whatever you want to invent. I mean, that's the problem with, we have to work within what we've got. Otherwise, we're just being silly when we're looking for Cooper. Like, oh, well, he could have been a German, Any developments with Lauren Hall? Well, I mentioned earlier that it turns out now that I don't have this coin. I cannot believe I can't find the damn photographs of the coin. I really thought that photograph that Packer put that photograph on the group there. So I really want to find that to show y'all. I'm going to keep scrolling until I find the damn thing. But the Skip Hall gave his gave his grandchildren, or maybe his children, I'm not sure what it was, either grandchildren or his children, he gave them commemorative coins that were that said 1971 Boeing 727 on them before he died. So, and we have photographs somewhere. Do we not? Did Packer? Did you remove that post? Somebody let me know. Where did that post go? I guess did you remove it, Packer? Anyway, yeah. So Skip Hall gave. Why's my name on there? Ryan Burns. Of course, I'm Ryan Burns. Why is my name showing up on there? Anyway, I looked for the coin, could not find it. Yeah, I guess Skip Hall. I guess Packer must have taken that photograph down. But yeah, that is circumstantial, but crazy as shit. Yes. Also, his will. Oh, Packer, don't kill me. I think if I saw your post, Packer, I would know. If I could find your post, but I think Skip's will, when he gave his money to his kids, it wrote "from Boeing" on it. That's actually in his will that maybe Packer found, that his will says "from Boeing." Skip Hall. So, ooh. You should have Josh Gates on your show. He has done 2 shows regarding Cooper. I should have Josh. I know somebody who has his contact info. Maybe we'll do that. Yeah, that stinks that we can't find that. Question from, hey, Matt, you got to finish these questions, man. If you're asking me questions, you got to finish it. One time somebody at work asked, how long have you been doing this? 25 years. I thought you were 25. I was 38, started going to work with mom in the summers as a kid. Yeah. Age is weird. Like I said, men from like 35 to 50, it's difficult, especially if you're wearing sunglasses. My God, you go play golf, go to the golf course, go to a golf course on any Sunday and check out the men. Good luck telling their age. Good luck telling a 40-year-old from a 58-year-old. Sounds at the very least that Skip wanted people to question whether or not he was Cooper. This is too specific, I feel, but might be a coincidence like everything. Yep. Question from my 6-year-old son, Ethan. Hello, Ethan. Was DB Cooper's bomb real or fake? I lean toward fake. I lean toward fake and him having a pistol in his mystery bag or in his pockets somewhere. I don't think that he needed it to be real, but it was a very convincing fake. If it was a fake, it was a very, very unnecessarily convincing fake. There is no reason for it to have been that fake. In fact, most hijackers who had a quote bomb never even showed the bomb to anybody. They just said, I had a bomb. And some of these bombs, if you read them, if you go on newspapers.com and read about hijacker bombs, they're always like a shoebox with rags in it or something. So Cooper didn't need to be that real looking, but it was. And that's what makes people think maybe it was real, because the wiring of it, the way it was rigged, and the battery was powerful enough to burst blasting caps on dynamite. So it could have been real. But Cooper's hand was just, he tells Flo, all I have to do is connect this wire to this gadget here and we'll all be dead. So Cooper's hand is in this briefcase holding this wire. It just seems turbulence, something. It might have been real. Maybe it just wasn't armed. Cooper does tell Tina when Tina says, hey, take the bomb with you. He says, yeah, I'll bring it with me or I'll disarm it. So, why was he still, that's a weird thing to say, right? I'll bring it with me or I'll disarm it. Because he had nothing, there's no reason for him to keep up the illusion that he had a real bomb at that point, right? He'd already got what he wanted. They were not going to mess with him. Okay. Why would he jump with a real bomb? He didn't jump with it, Jen. The FBI and me, and look at the other copycat hijackers. They just threw that crap out the back of the plane. They assumed, the FBI in their files, read them, they think that Cooper just tossed the briefcase out the back and also tossed the dummy chute out the back as well. And that they just landed with a crash somewhere in the woods. And nobody found any part of the briefcase. Well, again, that's because I think it was chunked into the woods. And that is some deep, deep woods. Yeah, weird having loose wires. Yeah, that's kind of the weird part about it is, like, I mean, any accident and you just blow yourself up. It seems, I don't know. Bomb could have been a dud. McCoy had a paperweight grenade and an unloaded gun. Think his gun was unloaded. I don't know that for sure. Does him throwing it out mean it's real? What if it exploded? Well, I mean, that's not how bomb. I mean, you can't throw dynamite at somebody and it blows up. That's kind of that. They have blasting caps, and that's how that works. You know, that's why you don't throw a bomb at somebody and it blows up. So that's kind of. Were all the copycats also on 727s? No. Richard LaPointe jumped out of a DC-9. So there were only 2 American planes. There was a British plane, I forget the name of it, but there was a British plane that also had aft stairs. But as far as American planes, DC-9 and the 727 were the only ones that had aft stairs. And he jumped out of a DC-9, LaPointe did. The other ones were 727. I can see Cooper going to the library not to learn about aviation, but how to build a bomb. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they have bomb making books in libraries. Maybe they do. Wasn't dynamite brown in 71? No, actually. We've found plenty of dynamite. That's a myth. We found plenty of dynamite that was fire engine red from that era. So, and remember, you could buy dynamite in stores back then. There's a great news article from, I think I found it, put it in my book, that it's from like 1970, where these people in Michigan, they're trying to prove a point. They're saying it's easier to buy, it's easier to get a dynamite than to get a prescription drug filled. So they go to a pharmacy, and like a pharmacy sold. It's one is like in Mississippi, like in the wood, out in the sticks, they have, we call them, they used to have video and bait shops. So these were gas stations that had, they would sell bait for fishing, and they also were video rentals at gas stations. So video and bait shops. Does my book include photos? Yeah, it does, man. Of course it's include. Yeah, it's a photo, not a photo book, but yeah, it's got lots of stuff. Anyway. And yes, the video I put out recently of Cooper waking up in the morning, that is from my book. That is the prologue to my book. That was me reading the book. Okay. He would have been crazy to use a real bomb. The only reason to have a real bomb, the only reason that I can think is to blow your body up. Maybe he didn't want, because we know of a hijacker. There was a hijacking the same year in Australia. No, the next year. Sort of a copycat hijacking. The guy did request parachutes for his hijacking. So I mean, it was Australia's first hijacking ever. And the guy he was from Tasmania, I think, ended up getting killed, like 25 years old. And they put his dead face on the cover of like newspapers at the time, like literally just photos, like, of Jesse James dead on a table. Right. So they weren't beyond doing that in the 70s to people. So perhaps Cooper may have been worried that if he had been killed in the hijacking, that they would put his dead face on the news and bring shame to his family or something. So, he had a knife. That's good enough protection in my book. It was a pocket knife. So when is the FBI going to dig up McCoy? They're not. They are not going to dig up McCoy. That is bullshit. from Grifter's people. What are the odds Cooper had an altimeter with him? I imagine he needed one to confirm the pilots were flying at 10,000 feet. Good point there. Good point. Even McNally was smart enough. I'm sorry, Mac. I'm not saying even Mac, but Mac's probably watching. I'm sorry, Mac. But even McNally knew to get an altimeter. McCoy had an altimeter. I think most of them did. I think Heinemann, who wasn't a skydiver, he asked for an altimeter. So Cooper had a mystery bag, people, right? Cooper, whatever was in his bag, which was, I don't know, this tall and that big. I mean, his bag was about 4 inches tall, high, and was about as big as, they said it was slightly smaller than his briefcase, because he goes to the bathroom, he puts the bag on top of the briefcase and carries it like a pizza box. That's what Nancy House says, like a pizza box. And so whatever was in there was bulky enough to, right? So it could have been a rabbit in his bag, maybe. But no, it was the bed sheet. Remember when Eric was going on about how the bed sheet he found? It was the bed sheet, yes, because you never leave home without your trusty, never do a hijacking without your trusty bed sheet. But do I think Grifter planted the chute he found? No freaking comment. Is there a way I can watch CooperCon this year? I think what we're going to do, maybe, I don't know. I think what we're going to do is, you can't stream it. So streaming is too complicated because people will be like, oh, I can't see, you know. So I think what we're going to do is professionally videotape it and then set it up on like a video on demand sort of thing, right? So yeah, I think we're going to professionally film it. And I think that's, Packer says that's what most, I don't do business conferences, but he says that's what most of them do now, is they don't stream things anymore. They'll just do video on demand. So I think that's what we're going to do this year. Doesn't sound big enough for a helmet. No, boots maybe. I don't know. I was able to, my mystery bag, I was able to put, I found a bag that was the exact same dimensions essentially. And I was able to, I'm going to make a video of it and do it again. But I found a bag of the exact dimension, and I was able to put goggles, a pistol, paratrooper size boots in there, canteen. So yeah, has Grifter gone off the rails completely? Yeah, I think I didn't mean to, Dan. Sorry, buddy, but yeah, I think well, look, we knew he was going to do this. We knew that as soon as I pointed out that the FBI's own files say that it looked like that and not what crap he found, he's going to go, I knew he was going to pivot and go, oh, the FBI, they're involved. I mean, well, it's like, Dan, I thought the FBI were your heroes. They came 8 cars deep, apparently, to come get the parachute. They're your best friends. But now they killed McCoy because they wanted to cover up that he was Cooper. So they killed him. So they wanted to cover up that he was Cooper. So they killed him and then made themselves look stupid for 45 years later. Wait, no, if they were to kill him because they thought he was Cooper and couldn't prove it, they would kill him and frame him after he died for it. Idiot. Okay. Is it possible Cooper wore different clothes under his suit? Yes. So the benefit of having McNally, I need to get Mac on the show, but the benefit of having McNally, and I didn't know this because his book wasn't out yet, but like, I asked him, I was like, hey man, were you wearing under your suit? Mac wore a suit. I'll pull up what Mac looked like for those who don't know. There's my AI of Mac. That's exactly how he looked. Close enough. I sent that to Mac and he was like, how do you do that? I said, well, it's the miracle of AI, Mac. We live in the modern era. Mac said, that looks like me. I said, well, yeah, it does look like you because it's AI. But he was wearing yellow pants, a red jacket, yellow tie, fake big bushy wig, and sunglasses. Anyway, that's how handsome Mac looked. But anyway, I remember I asked Mac, I said, hey, were you wearing like thermal underwear or something under your clothes or whatever? He goes, oh, no. He goes, I was wearing jeans. He was wearing jeans and a polo shirt under his suit because he wanted to, he said, when I landed on the ground, I did not want to be dressed like the hijacker, which is great. So Mac, when he sent his girls to the front, he took his clothes off. He took off his suit and threw it out the back. And what's great about that is that the FBI found his pants and they said, "Oh, see, here's proof this hijacker died." They blew his pants off. He jumped at 330 miles an hour, blew his pants right off. The hijacker with it was like in the news, a hijacker with no pants, but it was just he just got rid of it, So, does Mac have 6 fingers? Did AI give Mac 6 fingers in that photograph? Oh, they did. Get the hell out. Okay, I got to Photoshop that out. They did give him 6 fingers. Dad, why can't they get fingers right? Isn't that interesting how we've always talked about how artists have trouble with fingers? That's why I like the thing with the finger, like the hand, like Napoleon, right? That artists never like drawing fingers. So artists don't like drawing fingers, and AI can't get fingers right. Isn't that strange? What's the most convincing evidence that Cooper was not killed during the jump? The Tina Bar money. Now that is counterintuitive, right? Because you would say, well, Tina Bar money, he lost his money and he fell in the river. That was the big thing. He drowned in the river. His money washed off his body, blah, blah, blah. No way, man. Because again, that plane is only over the Columbia for 5 to 10 seconds. And it's way after Cooper jumped. 5 minutes after Cooper jumps, right? So the money is the best one. Because look, for the money to get there, if Cooper dies, okay, Cooper's going to get, again, the odds of dying in a parachute jump are virtually zero. Like it's like this, people say it's like the safest way to travel. You're probably more likely to die in a plane crash. I think you are, I'm sure, than jumping out of a plane. Parachutes work. It's like, how often does a life preserver not float, right? It's similar concept. You pull the ripcord, you will live. You might break a leg or something unless you land in the river and drown. But again, he did not land in the river. There's not very little water there to land in. Virtually none where he jumped. So for the Tina Bar money, for Cooper to die and for Tina Bar money to be found on Tina Bar 10 miles away from where he jumps from the flight path means that somebody found Cooper's body and just took his money out from his smushed body. I guess he's no pull. They're going to find the money covered in his gore, I guess, like he's crushed and smashed into the ground. They're going to take the money, and then somehow that's how the money gets to Tina Bar, is they found it off Cooper's dead body and buried him or something, right? That is stupid. I don't buy that. So the money getting there at Tina Bar means that Cooper probably landed with the money and got out of there. So I don't know. Did D.B. Cooper cut up one of the parachutes to tie the money to his body? He sure did. Yes, here's little Coop. So we can look at little Coop here. This, Cooper ties the money bag. They're behind me too. You can see the money bag. That is parachute shroud lines. Cooper opened one of those little parachutes and he cut out about 100 feet of parachute cord. And he used that to wrap his bag up. And then he tied a length of rope to what he had tied up on the bag, and then tied that around his waist. And that is how he jumped. Now, he didn't jump I don't think he jumped like this with the bag going behind him. What paratroopers do is they will tie a money bag, they will tie a bag to themselves. And then as they're coming down, they will drop it, and it drops down and it hits the ground before they do. So, and it also takes the weight off their landing. So it looks like Cooper made a drop bag, a drag bag, which could indicate paratrooping experience, perhaps, because that's what paratroopers do. Do I think Cooper could have cut up both test chutes? No, Mary, because I don't believe there were shroud lines in the dummy chute. It's my understanding that the dummy chute was just a parachute canopy sewed and cut in half and then folded over and sewn together. So almost like thinking like a pillow. Like it was just there to fall out. The dummy chute was there to teach people how to just pull a ripcord on a chest reserve like that one, right? So I do not believe there were shroud lines inside there. That's my understanding, is that it was just like a pillow would fall out when you opened it. Okay, so I don't think there were shroud lines. No. Good night, I. Any possibility he survived the jump and then died by misadventure walking out? So there's the hobo theory, right? There's some theory that hobos killed him. I like that theory. No, I'm kidding. I don't like that theory at all. But there's some theory that he, yeah. In 71, few people were killing strangers. Well, I hope people don't kill strangers that much either. Yeah, it's not that difficult. If Cooper knew roughly where he was jumping, I mean, I don't know. People think about this. I mean, think about whatever county you live in right now. If you were above it, you would at least, and you knew that you were above the county that you lived in. I mean, you could figure it out. Think about where the interstate or highway comes through your, I mean, if Cooper lands in Orchards, all he has to do is figure out which way. He has a compass with him, hopefully, in his mystery bag. Just figure out which way is west, walk west, and you're going to run into the interstate, right? There are campgrounds and rest areas along I-5. A vehicle could have been waiting. I think he probably just told him, if he had an accomplice, just tell the accomplice, go wait, unless you're drunk Joe Johnston, right? Go wait in the hotel, go wait wherever, and I will get to a phone eventually, and I'll call you and let you know where I am. Come get me. So it's not that complicated. Would a military man know about packing cards? If they were riggers, yes. But maybe not. That is an interesting thing. That's somebody who, again, it's like the Skip Hall thing. It's like Skip Hall would have known about packing cards, I think, because he packed his own parachutes. So, yeah. Ted Braden was a trucker working for Consolidated Freightways based out of Vancouver. Could have had a truck at a truck stop to navigate to. Yeah, I mean, Consolidated Freightways, actually, their parking lot is in Vancouver. Yeah, it's still there. It's a truck stop that's still there. So, yeah, he could have just parked his truck and walked to the airport and hiked back to his truck whenever he jumped out. Braden, that would have been nothing for a guy like Braden. I mean, Braden jumps into North Vietnam and gets out. Come on. Wouldn't have been that big a deal. Braden knew the area well. I don't know about that, Jen. I don't think there's no indication that Braden really, had any real dealings with that area, to my knowledge. That's I think that Drew Drew. I don't know if Drew's in the chat still, but I think Drew looked into that, and there was a thing where they thought that one of his buddies owned a plane and lived in Vancouver at the time, but it turns out that they didn't. One of his McAfee buddies who had retired. Ted doesn't have the nose. Yeah, Ted's nose is a little bigger than I would like, for sure. In fact, we don't have that many suspects who have the Cooper nose, really. I mean, that rules Gossett out for me. Gossett's got a big old honker. I mean, let's try and look at which suspects have. See if I have the which suspects have the Coopery nose. Let's see here. Let's look at them. All right. Well, top left. Yeah, Dr. Roman's got a little nose. See, starting from top left, and I'll go back and forth to the top left. See, Roman's got a little nose. What's that kid's name? Oh, Roger Strom, sort of. Melvin Wilson. Dwayne's got a big nose. Vordal's got a pointy nose. Braden's nose, yeah, it doesn't look like the sketch. Then right below Braden, Burnworth certainly has a pointy little nose. In fact, they liked his nose. There's a 302 where they see Burnworth's photograph. Now remember, they say Burnworth is more handsome than Cooper. That guy looks ugly as shit. Rackstraw, his nose is fine. Lepsey's got a kind of a little nose. Catalano, they liked his nose. They specifically liked his nose. Langseth has a pointy nose. Skip has a pointy nose. Below him is Petey. Peterson's got a kind of a pointy nose too. I think Kofeldt's nose is too big. LD's got a good nose. What's his face has a good nose. Lakic. Kenny's nose is a little big. Lee Sellers got a pointy nose. Below him is Dayton. Dayton has got a pointy nose. There's Orville Lions down there. He's got a small nose. Then there's Reca with his frying pan gorilla nose. Smashed with a frying pan. Way too big. Gossett's nose is huge. McCoy's nose. Now, we know for precisely, they said McCoy's nose was bigger than Cooper's. And I don't think McCoy's got a big nose. But that was one of the things that they got eliminated. McCoy, the stewardess said McCoy's nose was too big. And William J. Smith, he's older in that photograph, but I do think his nose is too big too. But yeah, noses are, I mean, they comment on the noses a lot. I'm not just harping on the nose shit. Like they talk about Cooper's nose a lot in the 302s. They're like, oh, that guy's nose is too big. It was a common metric that they used to eliminate suspects. The stewardesses did. The main top left pic looks like ain't got no gas in it. French fried potatoes. That's James Roman. Now, James Roman was an astronaut, literally. James Roman was a NASA flight surgeon or something like that. James Roman he was in the class with Michael Collins, but then he became a doctor. He didn't become an active astronaut. He became like a NASA flight surgeon, or he was a test pilot. Then he went to med school and became a quack doctor. I'm not even sure if he went to med school. Who knows? Because Roman was a local doctor in the area, had been a NASA guy, test pilot, yada, yada, from Belgium originally, by the way. There's a Dan Cooper connection. But moved to America when he was younger. Roman, his wife, in 1980, he has a younger wife. He finds out his wife is having an affair with a local optometrist. And then a week before Tina Bar in Vancouver, Roman kills the optometrist on the street, then goes home in Washougal and kills his wife, then kills himself. So when the sheriff's department comes out there, they're going through his house. They find a secret vault under his barn that's got dynamite, fake degrees, spy books, police scanners, blasting caps. I mean, all kinds of nefarious crap. And they tell the FBI a few years later, like, it's one of the few times that in the 302s we have a law enforcement actually tipping the FBI. They say, hey, a couple of years ago, I investigated a murder-suicide, and the guy was from around the area. He had blasting caps and fake certificates and timing devices and all kinds of madness in his basement. And they found where he was supposed to do a liver or an appendix removal or whatever, appendectomy, and then ended up during an appendectomy cutting the left breast off of a woman. So he was a quack surgeon. They found all these lawsuits, and it makes me wonder if he was ever even a real surgeon or something, right? But that's James Roman. Decent suspect, actually. But the only problem with him is I don't like people who are from that area because it's too much of a risk to get spotted at the airport, right? Burnworks looks like a Civil War photo. Yeah. William J. Smith is the closest. I don't think so. Hey, Ryan, I want to ask, have you recovered from the eBay? Oh, no. I shan't even read this post. Hey, Ryan, I wish to ask, have you recovered from the eBay nightmare you experienced in regard to the Rare Witness catalog? No, I've not managed to find another copy. I will never find another copy. I mean, folks, if you don't know what this is about, I have been looking. This thing is the holy grail. Like, it is impossible. FBI facial identification catalog. It's the catalog that they picked KK51 out of and all this other stuff, right? I searched for 2 straight years for this on eBay. Like every single week, at least once a week, I'm typing in FBI facial catalog on eBay. That damn thing shows up the week of CooperCon last year. And I missed it. It sold for $50. I was like, are you freaking serious? That this thing I have searched for 2 years, every week on eBay, the week of CooperCon, I'm just not paying attention. I forgot about it. It shows up and it's sold. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So yeah, I will never recover from that. That is the worst thing I've ever, I'll never find another one either. I mean, I even hit up Roy Rose's family. I was like, hey man, does he have one of these? Why is the incriminating stuff always in the barn? People don't look there, I guess. Let's see. I hide my adult magazines in the barn. Yeah. Because that's where McCoy puts things, Mary, in the barn. Yes, McCoy puts his souvenir inoperable Air Force parachute in a barn that just happens to have wonderful fittings, right? I mean, come on, people, let's look at that. Let me just pull that up just for research here. Let's see. Where is the Grifter stuff? Where is my Grifter? There we go. Look at this. Look at these metal pieces, people. Let's just look at this. Look at those metal pieces. Do you think that something sitting in a non-climate controlled barn in the Carolinas for half a century is going to have metal pieces like that are that good quality? I don't care if it's in a box or not. I'm from the South, people. It is muggy as hell. Everything gets saturated in rust. I am dubious. I'll just say that. And I know some professional riggers are also very, very dubious that a parachute would be in that good of condition after half of a century in a non-climate controlled barn in the Carolinas. Color me skeptical. Larry Carr might have that book. He does not. I have asked, Jay. Grifter is an oddball. Oh, bands earlier, Waylon or Hank Jr. I guess Bo Cephas, I guess. We'll go with Bo Cephas. It's a parachute, just not the right one. Well, yeah, of course. It's a parachute. Again, just like, remember, we're looking for a Ford Mustang and Dan finds a Chevy with no engine, with no wheels, and it's sitting on cinder blocks. That's what Dan found. Friggin' Dan. Muck and Foron, probably accurate with the time delay that it takes the radar signals. What are we talking about? Cooper became or was an over-the-road truck driver before pulling the heist. He was a night paratrooper jumper during Vietnam War. He was trained more than just a paratrooper. Maybe. I mean, he's a little old for Vietnam. That's the only problem. I mean, unless you're someone like Ted Braden, who was a World War II guy and also a Vietnam guy, more like a Pinto. Isn't it convincing that if Cooper had been killed, someone someplace would have come forward reporting a missing person? Well, probably not. Remember, there are more missing, they call it, than missing persons. So missings are people who are missing, but they're never reported. I mean, I talk about Ivan Uncle, that we have no idea if he's alive, or, we had no idea if he was alive or not for the longest time because we didn't care. Sometimes people just wear out their welcome and the family doesn't care. So, I mean, and again, even back then, think about the dads who go out for the pack of smokes and don't come back, that sort of thing, right? Very prevalent in that time period. If a woman had gone to the cops and said, "Oh, my husband never came home last night," they'd say, "Well, lady, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. Now go bake the police force some cookies." That's back in those days. That's how it was, right? Man can do what he wants to do. So, I mean, Cooper not being reported missing. I mean, really, the only missing person suspect, think about this. Our best missing person suspect is Lee Seller. Okay? Lee Seller was never reported missing, ever, by anybody. He just drops his kids off in Seattle in early 71, and this is the Canadian bomber pilot, and just disappears off the face of the earth. And no one ever filed a missing persons report for him or anything. And it wasn't until the DB Cooper Netflix show that Lee Seller's nephew is sitting on his couch watching the DB Cooper Netflix, and they're talking about the Canadian connection. And he goes, "Hey, wait a second. My uncle was a Canadian aviator who went missing, and he lived in Vancouver for a while and lived in Seattle for a while." And so Poulsbo, is that how you say that? Poulsbo, Washington. That's where he was living, I think. But yeah, Lee Seller goes missing. Larry Carr likes Lee Seller as a suspect, by the way. Actually, Larry didn't like suspects, but he likes Lee Seller because remember, Larry thinks Cooper died, and Lee Seller was somebody who was known to be a guy who thought he was smarter than he really was. He had delusions of grandeur, some mental illness, bad with money. A story about him Paulsbo. Okay, Paulsbo. Watch. Thank you, Wendina. Somebody asked, any ideas of next guest in your podcast? Yeah, Larry Carr. I think I should have Larry Carr on next week, maybe. Paulsbo. Yeah, should have Larry Carr on. Also, I would like to get. I've got their name written down somewhere. There's a person who's like the world's expert on eyewitness descriptions. And I would like to have them on briefly, talk about how good or bad eyewitness descriptions are. Remember, I've told people this story before that when I was a prosecutor, I had a case that was a kidnapping case. And now kidnapping is not like what you think in movies. It's not taken. It can be, that can be kidnapping. But if somebody broke into your house and tied you up and then ransacked your house for 3 hours, that's also a kidnapping. They would also be charged with kidnapping in addition to burglary. Kidnapping is just depriving someone of movement, essentially, for nefarious purposes. So kidnapping is tying someone to a chair in their house, even. Anyway, in this case I prosecuted, the woman was a victim. This is what happened. These two people came into their home and tied him up and ransacked their house. And she picked the wrong person on the photo lineup. So, I mean, this is a day after it happened. So they arrested the wrong guy. And it was like, oh, wait, that's not him. And so, it happens. Eyewitness testimony is not great. So I'd like to have a eyewitness person come on and talk about that. I have a few questions for Larry Carr, don't we all, Larry? Get a medium on. Well, that's Bruce. I've had Bruce on, man. Bruce is a medium. I would ask Larry Carr, if he died, why are you still investigating in your spare time? Well, I mean, I could believe he died, and I would still investigate it, right? I want to find out who the dead guy is. Maybe Grifter is Cooper, and he's trying to throw the FBI off by putting the spotlight on McCoy. Grifter's more likely to be the Grimace from McDonald's than he is from Peter Cooper. I don't know if he was old enough to have been born back. I don't know how old Grifter is. Probably in his 60s, I guess. I'm not sure. Again, I can't tell. What do I think of Brad Metzler's episode on Cooper? Crap. It's Kenny Peterson junk. That's what I think about it. It also has Himmelsbach. I think that might be Himmelsbach's last TV appearance. And it's the one where he goes and Cooper jumped out at -7 degrees. All of a sudden people go, oh my God, -7. He jumped out -7. Well, that's Celsius, Ralph. You're cheating. To quote Dan Grifter, Ralph. Yes, Ralph, you're cheating. You're embellishing. You know the difference in Celsius and Fahrenheit, Ralph. Yes, it was 22 degrees when Cooper jumped out and 44 degrees when he landed on the ground within 5 minutes. So he's not freezing. Ralph literally said Cooper may have frozen to death before he hit the ground. I'm not even sure that's possible to do. To freeze to death. I wonder if I have that image I made. I'm trying to find that image. I wonder if I still have that somewhere. Yeah, that's just silly Ralph. I wonder if I have that image I made of where I made fun of Ralph Himmelsbach talking about Cooper freezing to death on the way down. Do I not have that somewhere? Oh, I do. Yay. Here we go. All right, people. I made this Photoshop for fun. Quote, if Cooper didn't freeze to death on the way down, he probably died when he hit the ground wearing an extremely fast parachute provided by authorities in Seattle, said Himmelsbach, reached at his palatial mansion in Redmond, Oregon. Yes, and I have a photo of a man jumping out and the face of Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining. There. It's not medically possible to freeze to death on the way down. Yeah, I grew up in Alaska. When it warms up to 44 degrees in March, we wear shorts. Yeah, actually, absolutely. My people are all in Colorado. Yeah, I was just there last week. I mean, you wear shorts when it's 35 degrees even. It's not going to kill you. Yeah, it's just not. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, again, how many soldiers How many millions of soldiers in World War II were in worse conditions than that, and they didn't freeze to death? Okay. Yes, the weather was typical Western Washington. Absolutely. Just drizzle, wet. Just the way Cooper liked it, perhaps, right? I think it's very advantageous for Cooper to jump in those conditions because they're not going to see you. Low chance of them seeing you jump out. Low chance of seeing anybody looking up and seeing a parachute coming down. Actually, good conditions for Cooper. People don't realize that. Yeah, you can die of exposure when it's in the 40s, but it takes days or weeks. Yeah, it's not. And again, Cooper's hiking. He's not laying there going. He's actively moving, and his blood is up. He just got $200,000. It's $1 million today, right? Well, $1.4 million, I think today is what it is. How many soldiers were 50? Well, possible blood. I mean, again, he's not going to die though. It's 44 degrees. What's going to? I mean, he's not dying. Yeah, it's dramatic license. It's they know better. Again, the FBI. When you read the actual documents, people read the FBI files. They think he lived. They have no reason to think he died. Every single parachutist they talk to is like, yeah, this is a very easy jump, actually. He does have Benzedrine. That's right. He has benzos. He has his go-go pills. Okay. Did Hemi have an alibi for the Cooper skyjack? Yeah, he was wolfing down a cheeseburger when he, yeah, it's colder than 44 today in East Tennessee. I didn't freeze or die. Where are you in East Tennessee? You're in Nashville, Franklin, Columbia, Spring Hill, Murfreesboro. Where are you in Tennessee there, PRD? Would you turn in $1 million cash if it landed in your backyard? Good question. So the Lowell Elliott ended up having a heart attack a week later, by the way. Lowell Elliott was a guy who found McNally's money in his yard. Okay, $500,000 in a mail bag lands in his front yard, and he contacts the authorities. And if you talk to McNally, that is like, because I'm sure he just thought about it for 38 years in prison. He just cannot believe how stupid. He's like, this guy's an idiot. He had $500,000. That's $3 million today. He had $500,000 fall in his front yard, and that's that. So crazy stuff. Anyway, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here, folks. It's between 2.5 hours. I've been going on a lot. Show the ticket and explain why it was the first ticket. Top middle. Was it the first ticket out of a new book? No. It's like, I think it's 4 behind Bill Mitchell's ticket, actually. If you compare Bill Mitchell and his ticket, it's 4 behind him. It wasn't out of a new book. He was 4 people behind Bill Mitchell when he bought it. Anyway, okay. Well, that's it, folks. So I got to wrap up. It's been 2.5 hours. I've been going on long enough. Hopefully next week I'm going to have Larry Carr on, and we will go from there. Thanks for the hangout, Ryan. Thank you. And help pass the night. Thanks, folks. And for those who missed part of it, this will be a podcast, or you can go watch the beginning. But I'll put it out as a podcast tomorrow. Thank you, Dina. And for those of you out there, good night and good luck. Bye.